Friends, fans, and fine folk, grab your drinks and snacks and come on down to the campfire for this short rest with me, my friends, Homie and the Dude! Beer, 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 beer.
Strobe lights.
Air horns, fireworks, pyrotechnics. How's it going, Homie and or the Dude? How's it hanging? You having a good night? Well, good morning for you.
It is very well. It's not super early, but yeah, it is morning here in the UK. We are enjoying sunshine for the first time in 7 months.
Oh God, yeah, it's been lovely. We've had weather that's been at 20 degrees Celsius and above for the last couple of weeks, and it's been nice to finally get some vitamin D and come out of that, winter depression season and get remotivated coming into the spring summer. And so
this could be it. Summer could be done now.
Yeah,
exactly.
we don't know.
That's usually how the UK summer works, isn't it? It's just like, oh, we've got our week of summer. Go, everybody out to the beach. Go to Blackpool. Go to Skegness.
Grab the bucket of umbrella. Grab the sunblock. Where's the kid?
It's starting to rain. I don't care.
Exactly.
Yeah, I know it all too well. I know it all too well because I was in Perth visiting one of my partners in Western Australia and in start of March, and that was in the high 30s, low 40s sort of Celsius, which is very hot. It was the sort of weather where you'd stay inside and just have the aircon on all day. And then I got the call from my brother being like, hey, you need to jump on a plane. Granddad might be clocking out in the next couple of days. And so I was the next day I was on a plane, got back to the UK, and I was like, oh man, this is a system shock to go from 30s, 40s degrees to single digits. Every morning my phone alarm wakes me up with a nice voice being like, it's time to wake up. Today's weather is blah blah blah, and it's got a high of this and a low of this. And when she started telling me what the highs and lows were, I was like, that can't be right. It can't be a high of 12. No, please.
When you're in New Zealand, it's like, it's time to wake up. The weather is perfect. And then when you're in the UK, it's time to wake up. Oh shit, it's fucking horrible out there.
It's fucking terrible.
Don't go outside, Rob, please. Yeah. For the love of God, I need someone to keep
The alarm begs you not to go outside. So yes, I know it all too well, having grown up there for 18 years as well before I moved out here. So the one thing that I will say about the difference in the seasons and the weather here in New Zealand is that I don't feel like I've had Christmas in 18 years. Because I associated Christmas with all of the weather leading up to the end of December, where it starts to get colder and it starts to get chilly. You start to see people wearing warm clothing. You start to see snowmen and things in the windows, and everything feels wintry. Everybody starts singing Christmas carols of walking in a winter wonderland and Frosty the Snowman. And then you move to New Zealand, and they still celebrate Christmas in what would be midwinter, but now it's midsummer. And because it's influenced heavily by everybody else's culture, they're still singing Frosty the Snowman and Winter Wonderland. It's the middle of summer. Everybody's having barbecues.
Wearing flip-flops.
Wearing board shorts.
There's a few times that you see ornaments and decorations of Santa Claus in board shorts and on a surfboard and stuff. It's very funny.
Which part of Auckland are you in, dude? Because I've been there, and it's a beautiful city. I absolutely loved it, dude. Which area?
It is a beautiful city. I'm not city centre. I'm further east than city centre. But yeah, it's easy enough. Well, I was going to say it's easy enough to get around. It's easy enough to get around once you get used to the roads and you have a car. Auckland public transport, thankfully they are improving it. There's a few railway systems and stuff going in, but it's taking a while. And I mean, understandably, we're one of the only major cities in the world that doesn't have any sort of underground, because we're built on entirely volcanic rock, and so it's very difficult to make an underground. But they are working on it. They're working on a light rail system and such. But it's taking a while, and it's not got the funding that it needs and stuff. So once you're used to the roads and you can drive, it's easy enough to get around here.
Yeah, I didn't realize it was actually volcanic rock. That's
most of New Zealand is.
Okay.
Yeah, New Zealand is created by two tectonic plates essentially, and so the entirety of the length of New Zealand, which is why it's the long shape that it is. Most of New Zealand is because of volcanic activity. Auckland, I think, can't remember now, but I think Auckland is built on 40 or 50 volcanoes or so. Most of them extinct.
Yeah. You have a good New Zealand story, don't you?
Oh wow.
Should I have noticed that?
Why are you gonna hit me with that? Basically, I came to New Zealand and was like really excited to go to Hobbiton, and because big Lord of the Rings fan, I've been wanting to go my whole life, and got there and just did like in my head. So first of all, I was like 18 years old, so just not the most like tuned in at that point in my life anyway. But I was like really certain that it was like off season. I was like, it's just not gonna be busy. Like there's no one here this time of year.
There's never anyone in New Zealand.
I was like, there's not gonna be anything. So I rocked up and they were just like, no, sir, you need to book like 3 months in advance.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, oh, I was like, really? I was like, I assumed that it was like a rock up on the day, like buy a ticket on the door. They're like, this is not an amusement park.
They're like, excuse me, sir, Hobbiton accounts for like 20% of our GDP. So anytime I ever travel, people trying to hook me into conversation as a Kiwi will go with Lord of the Rings, the Flight of the Conchords, or the All Blacks. Those are the 3 things that people know about New Zealand.
That's so
And then they're done. That's it.
That's
They got nothing else.
So yeah, a lot of people come here to go to Hobbiton. There's a couple of guys on Instagram at the moment I've been following for the last month or so. They came out here, started in Hobbiton, dressed like hobbits with like bare feet and everything. They've got a little replica ring, the One Ring, and they've been hiking from Matamata, where Hobbiton set was, all the way down to where Mount Doom was filmed. They've been documenting their journey. It's taken them about 3 weeks, and they eventually threw the ring into Mount Doom.
That's incredible.
But yeah, a lot of people come to New Zealand specifically for Lord of the Rings tourism. So unfortunately, you can't buy them on the day.
So here's a question with Hobbiton. So this is the Hobbit. This is the actual Hobbiton that was used in the movie, or is this? Yeah. Okay. So what did like Peter Jackson and the production company say, like, look, we want to make a Hobbiton. Could we use this land of yours and we'll make it, and then afterwards you can keep it and open it up as, or is it like was it part of the government that was part of that conversation? I never really thought about that.
As far as I understand, it was the former. It was like part of the deal of them filming there was that they got to keep the land and keep using it with the Hobbiton IP and all of that, and use it for tourism.
Very cool.
And it must have been a very smart decision to make, because obviously while they were filming it, they didn't know how big it was going to be. They didn't know the success of it. So I could be mistaken,
exactly.
but I think that's how it worked.
That would make a lot of sense. And also, like, I think as well, Peter Jackson and all of that they were taking a shot in the dark anyway. So I imagine the whole tourism of like, if the movies had flopped and then you've just got these random circular houses, people are like, the fuck is this place? What's this from? Kind of thing. That would have been
These hovels in the middle of hills.
Yeah,
there was this little known movie series in the early 2000s.
That would have been interesting.
And instead it went completely the other way, mopping the floor at all of the Academy Awards. I think being the only films, or the only film at the time to win everything it was nominated for. Over 11 nominations, I think it was.
I was going to say 11 in the end. It was, dude, they swept. Dude, was it, I think it was the Return of the King year as well, wasn't it?
It was, yeah, 2003.
Yeah. Yeah, dude, unbelievable, dude. Unbelievable. I still cry, dude. I still cry.
It's testament to my partner and I just went when I went back to Perth. We went to Lord of the Rings the musical on stage in Perth. It was very fun to go to. It was an odd pacing choice. Like it was about a 3-hour play. About the first half of it, an hour and a half, was just the first book, Fellowship, and then there was a 20-minute interval. And then the entire second book was crammed into about 20 minutes with no mention of Rohan, Helm's Deep, none of that. They didn't have any battles. I think there was one choreographed fight that represented the Steward of Gondor or something, and then the third book was pretty much everything else. And there was parts at the end of it. The parts at the end of it, I was like, I don't really remember a lot of the Return of the King, because I always get to the point where I'm like, I should watch Return of the King, and then I go, I can't start with the third one. I got to watch the first ones again to through. And then I start with the first and second, and by the time you get around to it, you've lost steam, you've forgotten, life gotten in the way, and then you do it again eventually a year later. I should watch the trilogy again. So yeah, while I was over there, after the musical, my partner and I went, we're going to watch the third one.
What you should have done,
with the third one.
You should have gone to Lord of the Rings, the musical, the extended version.
Yeah, the extended director's cut of the musical.
6-hour musical. And they put Helm's Deep back in, and I do that. So, could you imagine if they did like a matinee that is the extended version? That would be so
You
fun.
think you're buying tickets to the matinee because it starts at 1 p.m.
Director's cut.
and then it actually just goes through till 11 p.m. You're like, what?
Yeah.
It's got 4 different intervals. Yeah.
They
They have to like serve food.
Dude, they're changing the cast halfway through because actors are actually getting gassed out.
actually exhausted.
Yeah, literally. That's fucking hilarious. That's such a good comedy skit. There's so much. That's such a deep well of comedy skit. Is like on the set of Lord of the Rings the musical. There's so much shit.
Actors in the back getting like fluids.
After every scene, the Frodo's running off and just inhaling steam. Got to keep his vocal cords going because he's singing so goddamn much.
He's got like the oxygen. He's like, put me on backing coach.
Sam's rubbing his back like, you got this, buddy. You got this. I'll carry this burden with me.
Spit bucket for him.
Man.
Ding. All right. Round 2.
Oh man.
So it is. So I have to say, it's testament to how good conversationalist you are that we just jumped straight into this without my usual preamble of who the hell are you? Would you like to introduce yourselves to my audience in case they don't know?
Hello, so I'm Bodhi, the son half of Homie and the Dude, and this old man.
I'm Tom, the old man half of Homie and the Dude, and we're a father and son team that started out exploring different aspects of content creation and have really honed in on TTRPGs and specifically setting books over the last 2 or 3 years, and we're working on our 3rd book right now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's so yeah, we're basically just two jabronis that thought we'd gather a family-based team together and make content that we love, that we think the community would love too, and that's been basically kind of our shtick at this point. Is what we're trying to do is make fun stuff that we love and want to play, and that we hope everyone else is interested in as well and would care about and that kind of thing. And so far it's been really nice. The community is amazing, and we wouldn't be here without the people who like brought us into this beautiful place and introduced us to like the community. And this is back when before Elon Musk had bought Twitter. There was a gorgeous like community on Twitter of like TTRPG people. And man, it was just a haven of love back then. And
this was around 2021. Like,
yeah, 2020, 2021.
Yeah, it was a nice space.
Yeah, it was a really nice space, and yeah, dude. So it's just been a lovely time getting to know the space, getting to know the people, like interacting with amazing creators, and yeah. So we're just here doing our thing, I guess.
Dude, this kind of circles back to you as well. Like, I mean, we have been fans of different content creators online. We started, I guess we discovered D&D specifically with Acquisitions Incorporated. Ironically, Chris Perkins has announced that he's stepping away from D&D. Yeah, just finished. So, what
a legend.
Yeah. By the way, Jeremy Crawford also just announced yesterday. But anyway, but yeah, then we were introduced, but like Viva and your skits and stuff like that was part of like our journey for sure, of just this is amazing. Cool. This is just creative storytelling that we want to explore how we can do more of personally, privately, but also like can we navigate somewhere in this space that has a place for us, and here we are.
And I think as well, like something to testament to you guys, because I've been watching your all the content, the TTRPG stuff and the like comedy skit stuff that Viva does, and have really been enjoying all of that for a very long time. And I think one thing that I love that you guys do with the D&D stuff is you pioneered that like green screen style mix of stuff. And it's like, it's been amazing to see, like, Corridor Digital did like a very similar thing, but very, very, very clear tip of the cap to you guys in terms of like your styling
I
and
never
things like
got
that.
behind the paywall for it, but I did watch the first episode that they put on YouTube, and I was very impressed. I did get a few comments being like, "Oh, are you worried that I'm like, why would I be worried? Like, they're not stealing our audience, and if they are stealing audience, then it is audience that preferred their stuff anyway, so that's fine. I'm happy for that audience to find the thing they enjoy. But likewise, they're gonna eventually run out of that stuff, and their audience is gonna be like, I want more of it. Oh, these Viva guys are doing a similar thing, so we're gonna get found by Corridor Digital as in the same way that people are finding them through us, and it's just more cake to go around. Like I've always sort of tried to reference the comic of like the content creators being like, oh no, they're also making a cake over there, and theirs cake is better than mine, and then from the buyer's point of view, it's like, oh sweet, 2 cakes.
Yeah.
Dude, there's another one as well.
Exactly.
There's another.
Sorry, one second. It's the testament to you guys though, because you guys pioneered that shit. Like you guys were the OGs with the green screen stuff and doing all that. So the fact that other people are mimicking that and like using similar stylings, dude, is so sick, dude. And that's why you guys are like what. Also, just the concept of NPC D&D was obviously just very legendary as well. Very, very sorry.
No. It's like you guys. I mean, there's certain. If you are interested in researching back through, there are certain people that have literally created a cottage industry of content creation. So you guys certainly have. I mean, XP has certainly with that, like 2 or 3 characters bouncing off of each other, cutaway scenes.
People
like a lot of content creators, their short form is that. I mean, he was literally the inception of that. No, but I was just going to say also, like, there's a third category of the cake situation, which is I'm creating my cake and it has these ingredients. Wait, you're creating a cake that looks like my cake. I don't like that. So I'm going to fucking come over and piss on your cake, that type of thing where it's like you're
definitely happens.
Yeah.
In the space, like, it's hard because like you said, almost like it's all funneling back in and people are like, the only way trends work is by people doing similar things to one another. But like there's content creators, that do get upset when someone makes something that is similar to their stuff and you're like, how like this is the space we're in. Like how are you getting upset by that?
It's unfortunate. It's unfortunate, but it is just a necessity of the industry we're in that there is a limited amount of stuff that you can make. And I constantly when I'm telling stories in various D&D things, I'm constantly getting comments being like, oh, it's I see that Rob's a obscure anime fan, and I'm like, never heard of it. And they're like, oh well, that character from this is basically an exact copy of this anime or whatever. I'm like, oh cool. There's such a thing as like convergent evolution, not just in evolution but in ideas as well. Like I have created ideas of homebrew rules and things that are going to, I guarantee they're going to have made before, so they're going to be similar to things other people have made, characters and scenes and stuff. And it's like, yeah, they're making something that's like me. That doesn't mean they ripped it off you. That means that or maybe they did. Maybe they were inspired by you and maybe they're just directly ripping you off, but maybe they've taken your thing and adapted it to make it their own, or maybe they were completely unaware of yours and it's just a coincidence that they've made it. And it's a small enough industry that it's like, oh well, it's so what? Like, it doesn't really matter to me if somebody's enjoying my stuff. What do they say? The mimicry is the sincere form of flattery and such.
That's it, yeah.
Do you know what I think? A great point you just made about the using stuff and like putting that into your games and like almost subconsciously using things that you've absorbed, whether it's like television or books or anime or movies or whatever, theater, all that kind of stuff. I love a quote, and a testament to who's saying it. Brendan Lee Mulligan has this quote that is, GMs are only as good as the obscure references that they make. And I'm like, that to me like really speaks as a forever GM. Like, I constantly am taking, multiple pieces of like, I'll be like, oh, for this character, I'm going to take a little bit of this main character and a little bit of this side character and a little bit of this person from here. I'm going to mash all of those together and make this whole new amalgamation. But like, it's come from, those strange places and aspects of things that, I love it. And I think it comes down to styling. Like, often when I GM, I talk about, cuts and the way that the kind of more how I think about how I would film something, as opposed to, like walking through a scene and describing it. I'm more like, doing like snap to someone's face as they're doing this, like cut, that kind of thing, because that's just how I see it in my head. And so that styling though comes from years of me absorbing, like movies and content that is, similar to like Edgar Wright's style and similar to like Quentin Tarantino's style and similar to like Wes Anderson's style and those. So that's how like I end up finding myself. But I think lots of GMs find their style and their things like that from the stuff that they've absorbed throughout their life.
I think you're saying, so I think, Rob, you're saying there's an unconscious element to that. And you're saying there's also potentially a conscious element to that, but it's like all of it is
definitely a bit of both.
I think it's not a problem until it's done deliberately without credit. I think when you're not adding something to it, like I cannot stand the sort of reels that are on Instagram where it's just a split or a stitch or whatever they call them, where it's just somebody else's reel and then there's just some guy in the corner just pointing at it or whatever. I mean, you're not adding anything to it. That's not content. You're just stealing content and you're not crediting the person that actually made the reel. And like the same with like a clip from something that was actually content, and then there's just a border on it or there's words above it or something. It's like, that's not content. You haven't changed it.
Yeah,
I hate that sort of stuff. That's straight up plagiarism of intellectual property. But taking somebody's idea of like a combat encounter and going, holy shit, I really love the way that you're doing this. I'm going to take that and use it in my game. And I don't like the way that this happens, so I'll tweak this rule, or I'll change that to a D8 rather than a D12 or whatever. And you change it to make it your own. That's inspiration. But I think there's a difference between inspiration and stealing.
Yeah, 100%, dude. I think that's a really, really good distinction there. Exactly, like you said. And yeah, it's a fine line. It's a fine line that GMs, like you said, you want to make sure that things aren't derivative, but they're they're fun and fresh and things, and that's a big part of what it is as being a GM. Often players will be like, man, I want to play something that's like Lord of the Rings, and you're like, okay, I can work something like that. It's not going to be Lord of the Rings, but it's going to be, or someone's like, I want to do something Cowboy Bebop style, and you're like, okay, cool, I'll find the system for that, and then we'll work, and then from there we'll work out how we're gonna like play that and get the styling right and things. And so, that's it's that fine line to try and to thread the needle. But it's if you get it right, it pays off beautifully and it really works nicely.
I think another point is like you can do a Lord of the Rings experience on your home family table. Like you can totally replicate any of that shit. It's when you start making it into a commercial thing, when you start looking at, putting it out there to the world as part of your creation portfolio, then that's where you have to be, you have to be a little bit more creative. You see it in stand-up as well. Stand-up say, well, like most jokes are derivative, right? There's some sort of relational connection here or there. But like if you're literally repeating the words that I say, pausing the way I pause, and delivering punchline. I mean, come on, man.
It's I think it's I think there's a lot to be discussed about like where that grey area is between inspiration and what have you. I think there's also, it ties into a current world discussion about AI like stealing art rather than being inspired by art. And I was reading this thing on Reddit the other day of a guy saying like AI training on people's artwork is not stealing. Changed my mind, and I usually have the opinion of the other way around of like AI artist theft and such. If the artists that are used to train it aren't being paid, but then I found it was making a lot of interesting points, and it was like, well, it's not theft to practice. It's not theft of Disney's IP to practice hand drawing Mickey Mouse to the point where you can draw Mickey Mouse. But if you then draw Mickey Mouse and sell it, then you're stealing their intellectual property if you're making money off of it. And this person was basically arguing that AI art taking other people's work that exists and using that to train understanding what a dog is versus a cat versus a lion, and training over all these different things. Then they're training on it. They're not making money off it until a person comes along and says, "Hey, make me a lion." Then it's stealing art because it's being inspired. But is it stealing because it's just being inspired by hundreds of thousands of different pictures of lions? It's an interesting conversation that we're going to have more and more in the next decade.
100%, dude. And like, so we very much, with all of our like books and all the things that we work on, we specifically go out of our way to state, no AI used here. Nothing we use is AI. It's all people made, and that's something that our community really, really love and stand by. But I think what you're saying is super interesting, because I think my perception of AI has been like, cool. If if at the point of which we're at, it feels like to people like it's stealing, or like, you know, whether it is or isn't or anything like that, if people feel like their stuff is being, you know, stolen and things like that, then I'm at a point where I'm like, cool, I don't want to use something that's making people feel bad. That's kind of where I'm at. But I think what you're saying is super interesting. And I've said for a long time, I think similarly to Photoshop, you know, when people started using Photoshop or Illustrator or, you know, Procreate or any of these new like drawing softwares that have been brought out on technology, traditionalists who were making animation with like paper and doing like flip paper, like you see Hayao Miyazaki like getting like livid about AI stuff because he's like, it's just not human and all this kind of stuff. So to me, interestingly, I think there's tools specifically if we're looking at like the, you know, movie or like entertainment industry that have enhanced the way that we do things, whether it's Unreal Engine, whether it's Houdini, whether it's, you know, freaking, you know, After Effects, Photoshop, you know, all these things.
Tries to make the workflow faster by replicating, by like...
Exactly. It's all making the workflow faster. It becomes a tool and it becomes something that we end up using. So I think in the same way that animators from Disney and Studio Ghibli and things like that have been like, you know, this new way is like, no, like not the way. And then it's come in and people have been like, oh, you know, it's actually a little bit easier. This is going to speed up the workflow. Yeah.
There was,
exactly. Like, I wonder if it will be like that with AI as well.
There was a really interesting reel I saw of basically people having this discussion, but regarding essays and things. And it was a bunch of teachers being like, oh, how do we stop the kids writing essays with ChatGPT and how do you catch them out and all this stuff? And one of the teachers said, like, well, why do we need to? Like, this is a tool that we don't need to be fighting against. Why don't we instead embrace it in the same way that we didn't fight? Like, she used the analogy of it like a calculator. When people were going, oh, calculators are cheating and you're not going to have calculators in your pocket, you need to learn how to do long division and such. And then eventually they were forced into compliance with accepting the understanding that calculators are super easy to access. Everybody's got a calculator in their pocket. And so we then move on to the skill set that we now need to learn is not how to do the long division, but how to input into a calculator in a way that you understand is going to give you the right answer, because the calculator is just going to give you an answer. You don't know if it's right or not unless you understand the input. And she's saying the same thing with the AI. She's like, instead of being like, go home and write a 4,000 word essay and bring it in, and then I have to try and work out if it's ChatGPT, say, hey, go and get ChatGPT to make a 4,000 word essay, bring it into class, and then we will work. The next skill set that we need to now teach is, in a world where you can do that, what are the skills that we need? So she was like, then we highlight it in class and say, like, what has it got wrong? What sentence structure could we have improved on? What could I have done better as the prompt to get a better essay out of it? And teaching the skill set of using it like a new technology. Kind of reminds me of like the Luddites, like destroying the looms and stuff because they were taking out their jobs. There is a genuine argument to why they were doing that for good reason, because like it is a capitalist society to be like, oh, I can replace these people with a cheaper machine. Let's do it. Because it'll save me more money, and the bigwigs get bigger, the rich get richer, so like it is. I think we do need to be slowing down AI. I think it's much too fast for us to understand its possible ramifications. I've been approached like a dozen times by people being like, "Oh, I'm from this new startup company where we're training like an AI dungeon master, blah blah blah. We'd love for you to help us train." I'm like, "Why would I train my replacement? No, I don't." Like I understand I accept the inevitability of AI coming into the world in every aspect of life, but I don't think we should be accelerating it. It's like if the car is out of control going downhill, you're not pressing the accelerator being like, "Well, we're going downhill anyway." Like, don't accelerate into it. Like, we need to be putting on the brakes, because the speed at which AI increases is like the speed that we increase versus a tree. Like, a tree doesn't look at us and goes, oh, I can get in the guy's way. No, you can't get in my way because I move just unfathomably faster than you. And AI is the same to us. Like, it moves unfathomably fast to our brains, and how slow things move in human societies. So I think we should be artificially trying to slow down the progression of AI so that we can understand it a lot more as it's being introduced into society. That's my kind of take on it.
I can like when you're talking about AI becoming the next evolution of dungeon mastering, game mastering, I'm just like the nuance of an exceptional GM seems to be a really, really tough, kind of needle to thread. Just because, I mean, you think of Brennan or you think about Abria, the pacing, the creativity, the spontaneity, the changing like on a dime when the player throws something at you that you weren't expecting or that wasn't part of the plan. Like, I guess it could happen, but that kind of like really next level of quality in DMing in the moment just feels like it's that, you can have a standard like robotic, nice campaign, nice NPCs, nice, dot to dot type thing. I can see that happening, but as far as next level, like, Mount Rushmore type performance, it seems like that's going to be a ways away.
Oh, I was just thinking, while Rob was talking, I was like, how funny would it be if, all the GMs who are like currently GMing and are like now faced with this new wave of AI made like, AI start taking over. We start, rolling out of, almost getting, back shelved, sent back to the stockroom kind of thing. It's just like DM support groups. And it's like, hey man, I'm Cody, forever GM. Yeah, man, another AI kicked me out of another job today. Like, it was a painful day, but I don't know, that was just what was going through my head. I was like,
To be fair, he was better than me.
his voices were sick, man. I just can't hit some of those accents.
The guy just stands up there and goes, right, so you all start in the tavern, take it away. And then the AI takes everything else, does it from that point on.
Dude,
so, speaking of starting in a tavern, we're 40 minutes into a 2-hour conversation and I'm just about to set up the conversation. Usually I like to start with saying, if we are having a short rest, we must be short resting around a campfire of some sort, perhaps. Or what are we? You're going to help me to GM this scene that we're in. Where are we short resting? What are we drinking? What are we eating? And what's the mission that we were on before we needed the short rest?
Okay, I got a location. You hit us with drinking and eating.
Okay.
So where we are currently is we have finally accomplished a year-long hike that we have been doing as an adventuring party.
Okay.
This hike is actually because Rob, our cleric, was looking to get as close to his god as feasibly possible.
Like a pilgrimage?
Yeah, exactly. And what's interesting about this is there was a combination of a couple of things. You made the decision to go to this one place, one, because it's a holy site for your people, but also because it's literally the closest place to God in that it's the highest mountain in the region.
Yeah.
So what we are doing is we're currently sat on this large boulder that is at the top of this mountain, and we have a 360 panoramic view as the sun is setting with clouds low below us, the land rolling out in different directions, basked in that warm color, those reds, those pinks, those oranges. And we're just sat on, like, I like to imagine like one of us has popped off our cloak and we're using it as like a, a picnic blanket vibes. And we're up here, kind of, I imagine, resting before Rob begins kind of his, whether it's ritual or whatever it might be, to contact this deity.
Okay, so let me see if I can build on that. So there we are in this very, like picturesque, scenic place, and out of my backpack I pull out, like a kind of like a Deliveroo type thing that I had gotten for me before we got there. Some takeout that says Nando's on it because why not, right? You want like it's not technically a first date, but it's like the equivalent of a new place, a new experience, and you're that close to God that I pull out a couple chicken thighs and start passing them around almost in a very
cold chicken thighs.
There's several different sauces that you can have.
Several-day-old chicken thighs.
Yeah.
You could have like what's the one, like garlic lemon sauce that you can like squirting a little garlic lemon. There's passing that around, and then in our steins, I pull out and I just pop open a monster because I need just a little bit more pep to get into that
Only
last
it's a
bit.
literal monster. It's like It's like a it's
pop
like
up in
some
a little monster.
it's brewed as it were by like taking some sort of like a baby purple worm, and then you like force feed it some like gelatinous cube or something. It's just some stuff, and you just fill up the outer skin of this purple, and then it just closes its mouth over. There's like a metal element, and then you pop open the monster.
Yeah, and it just vomits out this like almost like iridescent, glowing like liquid that looks like it's really, really not good for you. But
like
it's been
nuclear horse spit.
yeah, but it's been marketed as very, very like energetic and healthy. So
It's been marketed by the small shop at the bottom of the mountain that we stopped at just before we. It's like a Sherp. It's like you know in Frozen the dude who's in the shop. He's like yoo-hoo. So we encountered at the bottom of the mountain.
It's like what they say about like because obviously your human body needing to create your own homeostasis, need to create your own body heat. When you are in a cold climate, you burn a lot more calories to the point where they're like ancient like Arctic explorers and stuff would have to just eat straight up sticks of lard because that was the only way to get as much calories in as they needed. In a similar way, there's just this shop at the bottom of the mountain that just sells like the grossest shit. But they're like, here's the only place where it actually works. Like, you do need to be drinking sugary bullshit, like concentrated, pureed, whatever, and you do need to be eating fried chicken wings and stuff because it's the only way to get the energy to get up. And they're not chicken wings; they're cockatrice wings.
It's pure. It's literally protein and sugar and calories. It's literally they're just like those are the only two things you're gonna need.
Sounds like a typical night out in Bristol.
Sounds good. I think as well, we're not the only ones up here because there's a Sherpa that's headed up with us, and he's an air genasi, and he has like these pipes that come out of him that just go to our oxygen masks. Just because we're so far above the clouds now that Everest style, you need oxygen up there. So it's just this air genasi that just keeps oxygen coming. And we've bought ourselves some ring of cold protection as well.
Nice. So are we basically smoking him like a hookah?
Yeah.
He's sat in the middle and we're all oxygen mask off. Yeah.
It's like a 3-person what do they call them, camel pack with the drinks that you can wear. It's like that, but it's just like it just hides the fact that the pipes just go straight into his body.
Into his lungs.
Breathing in air genasi. Yeah. Perfect. So we're having a short rest at the top of this mountain before I go into my cleric ritual. Good to know. So I like to start 43 minutes in with a question of where did you get the name Homie and the Dude?
So that's a super interesting question. So the name was originally, we were coming up with a podcast during lockdown in the UK because we were like, we've got a lot of free time and our relationship when I was younger was not so great. And so, coming back from traveling and things like that, we just wanted to connect a little bit more. And so we were like, let's make a podcast together. Like, what are we going to call it, basically? And there's another podcast like out in the sphere that the name of it we really liked, which was Fighter and the Kid, which we really liked that name. It was just a fun naming convention that we thought was funny, like calling one person something and another person to something and like putting it together. And
the irony was, I think they switched roles as well. And you're not sure who is who. Like you kind of feel like you know who's who, but you're not sure. Like one person was an MMA fighter, but the other guy's a bit like full of himself. He's the shorter guy. He's always a little bit. And then the kid, so the MMA fighter is also the younger one. So you're like, okay, who's who? We're not sure.
They both could fit either.
Yeah, exactly. So it was, one of those where we thought that naming convention was funny. And then we were like, what do we do for us? And so we call each other like homie and dude all the time, just Americanisms because we're both Americans. So they come out constantly. We call other people homie. We call our friends homies. We call our friends dude. Like it's just kind of how it happens. And so we were like, how funny would it be if we're homie and the dude, and you don't know which one's the homie and which one's the dude? But the other thing that we loved about it is there's a character in The Big Lebowski that we both really love called the Dude. And we were like, that's really funny as well that one of us is homie and the dude because the in the dude is capitalized as well. So yeah, we just thought there was layers of humor there that we personally knew would be an in joke for us, and like no, everyone else would just be like, who calls a company me and the dude? Where for us
we're trying to be like a like
in joke.
official, you look into our space and there's these really like
Mage Hand Press,
Cobalt Press,
Spire Gaming,
really,
yeah, and then it's like homie and the dude. It's like,
Have you side note? Have you ever played the card game Dude? Have you ever heard of the card game Dude? It's it's a game where you have a deck of cards that all just have the word dude on them, but they're spelled slightly different or they're in different fonts. So one of them's really tiny writing, one of them's like really big capitals, one of them's just like got 7 U's in it. One of them's like wavy, one of them's like several times on the page. And everybody just gets dealt this hand, and the only thing you're allowed to say in the game is dude, and you have to match with, let's say there's 6 of you around the table. You pick up your card and it's got the teeny weeny one, so you go dude, 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 and everybody else, and then you're listening out for if anybody's saying dude, and if they're not, maybe that's not. If they don't have the card, you swing it to the bottom, move on. Dude, and you look at each other. You're like, yeah, we on the same page, dude. And then you show, and you're like, yes, we matched the dudes, so we get a point.
That's all.
It's a very quick fire. Everybody's doing it. Everybody's saying it all at the same time. So everybody around the table is going, dude. And then after the game, you're like, what? How is that dude? Like with timid, that's like bold capitals, dude. That's dude. I was reading yours as more angry than excited. It's very fun.
Dude, that sounds amazing.
We would excel in that.
Yeah, that's
people would say like, look, it's not even fair playing with you guys.
Yeah, we explored the facets of duty for many a century.
Yeah.
So tell me,
But yeah.
origins, like way back. Where was your first introduction to tabletop role playing?
Okay, so my first one was in school. I played 3.5 with my drama teacher, who was big inspiration for me. Like I was going down like the sports university path, right. And then like found this drama teacher, and he was just a legend, and he just like changed my whole trajectory of shit basically. And so played 3.5 with him. I didn't get along with 3.5 because just the amount of maths was just too much. I just was like, I just couldn't like keep everything in my head. And it was just way too much at the time. And I was worried about, and also at the time I was worried about, like fucking what latest music was out, what, like who I fancied, what's, my skateboard that I didn't, I had many other things on my mind. But then in 2020, when Tom and I had started the podcast, so we were like interviewing like pretty much people from many different walks of life. So we had like Olympians on, we had like musicians on, we had like meditation practitioners, we had like
tattoo artists,
professional skateboarders, martial artists. Like we were interviewing like a massive range of people that were like high level in whatever they were kind of doing, and that was really fun. But Tom literally stumbled upon a Acquisitions Incorporated live play at one of the PAX. I think the 2015 like live play at PAX basically. And obviously you have Chris Perkins regaled in some ridiculous outfit. You have Mike Rahulik and Patrick Rothfuss there, and at this point, neither of us had read Name of Wind as well. So we're like, we had no idea who these people were. We didn't know that Mike Rahulik and the bald guy, who I can never remember the name of, were the guys who made PAX.
Penny Arcade.
Yeah, exactly. And so Tom was just like, dude, these guys are fucking hilarious. And they are so good. And this is so much fun to watch. So he sent it over to me. And dude, I fell in love with it. Chris Perkins was just a masterful GM, like absolutely masterful. Always willing to roll with the punches, always just super loose as a GM and ready to do whatever. And then, Patrick Rothfuss was just incredible. I cannot remember the other guy as well. The
bigger dude.
Yeah, the heavy dude. He was incredible as well. But they just had
the cast. The way
their synergy.
Yeah.
Was perfect.
And what we didn't realize at the time was, and I think you see this with D20 as well, and with you guys as well, is D&D is just a vehicle for incredible improvisation. That's really what it is. You know, that's kind of what we started. For me, it's been like in the last year or so, and they were first. And I guess I just really like that creative, spontaneous stuff. So that took us to giving it a try.
Yeah, that took us to us being like, me being like, fuck, man, there's so many rules. Like, who's gonna GM if we're gonna run something? Because I've not been a rules person for anything prior to this. And so then we got the starter pack, and that was when Lost Minds was the starter pack. Took that, learned the module, learned the basic rules that they gave in there, and we played it through. It was good fun. We had some hilarious moments, but dude, I was a terrible fucking GM. Like, it was like there was railroading, there was all manner of
shutting people down.
It was just.
Can I do this? No, you cannot. It's not part of the plan.
No, it says that you go to the whatever next. You got to go to the cave and save the people.
Exactly. So I just wasn't a great GM. As players, like, we were just kind of finding ourselves, and no one had played before, so everyone was just trying to find what the rhythm was, basically. But at the end of that, I came away being like, cool. I don't enjoy running campaigns, so things that are like written out adventures, basically. Like, I'm happy with like a setting book or something that gives me like information about a land, and then I can build my own stuff and like adjust that information as I so please. But I just was like, I just don't like following a pre-written module campaign. And so from that moment, I've just been homebrewing basically everything. That led us to our first world, which was a floating, like a world of floating islands.
Was that Tom, was that your first introduction to it as well, the Acquisitions Inc.? You'd never heard of it before that?
No, I hadn't.
No?
So, I mean, I'd heard of it, and I was part of the whole, early days of D&D, and back then, so my kind of youthful trajectory was the sports and uni trajectory, and people that played D&D were ostracized. When I was in high school, they were a little bit like the outcasts. So
right,
all of that yeah, that's the cliche is true, like from my experience personally. And so I had heard of it, but I'd never played it, and I probably was a far distance away from playing it as well. So, but I was always up for it, and I always
You never
really
into acting.
Yeah,
you were in college as well, so then that unlocked some shit for you.
I didn't really connect up that D&D was like pure storytelling, and there's that for me personally that really resonates, and then even more so that it's real-time storytelling. So it's not, there's an element that has been prepared, and there's an element of, there's some stuff that could happen that was part of the plan, but ultimately it's evolving in real time.
I always liken it to a writer's room. I don't know if you've ever been a part of a writer's room process, but we do it at Viva all the time, where it's like, oh, we've got a new season of D&D Logic coming out, so everybody turns up with an idea of a particular script. They pitch that script, other people go, oh, it'd be funny a punchline if this happened, or oh, it kind of it doesn't. It feels like it needs setting up, so maybe we'll shelve that for a later season when people are more familiar with the characters. And together you make more of a solid story than individually would. It's always better to have that input for even like people who go away and write a novel all by themselves. They're likely getting other people, close friends and trusted accomplices, I was going to say, trusted authors and writers and colleagues to be like, what do you think of this scene? I'm not really getting it. So like, wisdom of the crowd. It's D&D is pretty much the same thing. The Dungeon Master comes along with scenes prepared in their mind of how it might go, and then somebody else does something that's crazy, or the dice say, nope, that's not happening, and you're like, cool, roll with it. Maybe we'll find an even better story.
And I think the other thing that was really interesting about it is, so our family is super, super competitive with like board games, with, sports, with, just about everything. There's an element of that competition. And I think when I saw that first actual play on YouTube, I could see something. It wasn't about winning. It was about collaborating. It was about, working off of each other, sending up the alley-oop for someone else to have the dunk and the cheer, these types of things. And that really resonated for me. And so when we played, just taking that competitiveness out of it was so refreshing for me, and just having some storytelling, and then to the point now where my playing style is the opposite of min-maxing or trying to be, as economical. Like I'm kind of free flowing and contrarian with like my shit. So I like to, just for me I just want to be fun, interesting, and possibly take it sometimes to your chagrin, take it to a place that it logically wouldn't be going, that type of thing.
Yeah, totally. I think, and I think Tom is an excellent player. He's one of, Tom plays at 90% of the tables that I run at this point. And he brings so much to the table in terms of I think one of the biggest things that I always say to new players is, like, when I'm doing my first session 0 with new players, is I say, piece of advice when you're RPing is, make a character that's similar to you so that it doesn't feel like a leap. You're not having to think lots about what they would say and how they would act, because you can just act more how you would kind of act and that kind of thing. And I also say to them, think about and yes. So a reason to keep saying yes and being part of the team and like keeping the story flowing and things like that. And then the other one that I always say is think about how you can alley-oop someone else or like assist someone else or like be like, set someone else up. And I always say, because if everyone is doing that, then everyone's going to get a hero moment. If you're always constantly trying to set other people up, then you're going to have, these amazing moments. And Tom is like the best at that. Like, we'll be like, okay, like, I'm going to do this. This is going to help you. Like, come here, let's work together. Like, let me elevate your thing. Like, or, even just in conversation of deferring to someone else, of being like, yeah, that's a really, really good point. Jensen, you're a lot more proficient in this. Give me your thoughts. You're the one who's trained, and you're just really good at like passing the talking stick, I guess, to people.
The immunity with conch.
Yeah, exactly. And I think you're really good in that space.
It is exhausting
nice
though if you are trying to do that and it's not being receptive though. Like, you have to have players that understand that style as well, of like, I'm setting you up for a thing, and then it's like, oh, you didn't do the thing. Oh, I was okay. Maybe you missed that. I thought I was gonna set you up for the cool moment that you. No, you don't want to. Yeah. I'm giving you the moment to shine because this is your mentor, and he's just revealed as a big bad evil guy, and your time to. You don't want to engage with the role play of the. Okay, cool. Yeah. I guess I'll take it. Right. You better tell me your plan. It can be exhausting. we one of the upcoming skits for D&D Logic Season 3 is around that, when there's like one person in the party who is good at role playing and everybody else just defers to them.
Oh, that's funny.
And again, and like in the skit, it's going to be something like there's going to be an element of like the DM is like trying to coax it out of them by the simplest thing. They're in a tavern and the DM's like playing the waitress and being like, "What do you want to drink, love?" And then the player just like turns to the role player to be like. And the role player's like, "Oh, he'll have a," and the DM's like, "No, I didn't ask you. I'm asking him. What would you like to drink?" and then they'll just grab the role player and just like bring them in front of them. The role player will be like, "I love it. We'll all take an ale, please."
Love it, dude. That's hilarious, dude. That's and I think, dude, that your point is super, super valid of having someone, I think. That's the thing, is you have to get your table on the same table instead of page. On the same table as quickly as possible. It's trying to like make sure that everyone gets the vibe and gets the like flow of how everyone's doing things. Because it will become really clear for anyone new that joins. They will almost instantly get it if all of you are on the same page. Then exactly. And so it's one of those that you got to foster that.
It's the vital nature of a session 0. Like I have a session 0 sort of checklist that I go through, and part of them is like I break down every aspect of it. I say how frequent do you want combats to be in this game? Do you want? Are you all perfectly happy to go an entire 4-hour session just role playing around a campfire, or do you want there to be a combat every session? Do you want there to be a combat every hour? Like, and not only that, but how dangerous do you want your combats to be? Maybe you want a lot of combat, but you don't want to feel like you're ever going to be in danger of dying, and you don't want to re-roll your characters. Like, I asked them that. I asked them, how much roleplay do you want? How much exploration? How much this and that and the other? What sort of adventure hooks are you, as a player and as your character, interested in? Are you the sort of person who's like, I'll go out and do good Samaritan stuff without even promise of reward? Or do you require I'll give you a magic item if you do this for me kind of rewards? You need to get into the
Just
nuances
love that.
of your session in the session zero, so that you can be like, this is the sort of table that everybody's on board with. There's one person that's clearly an outlier. I need to either talk to that person about being like, are you flexible with the sort of game you want? Because everybody else kind of wants a hack and slash dungeon crawler, and you're interested in this deep roleplay mechanism stuff. If that's the case, then maybe this isn't the table for you.
Yeah,
I think
important.
what I love about that, Rob, is, typically a session zero is about, safety tools and what people are comfortable with and, that type of thing. But I really love how you've taken it to the next level of like, experientially, what do you want to get out of this? Like, and as a table, I think that's really cool to
It's the same sort of thing,
include
like
that
you
in
were
there.
saying, I want to play Lord of the Rings. I'm like, cool. So what aspects of Lord of the Rings are you actually interested in?
Yeah.
Let's dig down into that and be like, what is it about? You don't want to just play Gandalf, or maybe I do, but then why? Because you want to play a fallen Aasimar type who is an angel that's super powerful, blah, blah, blah. Do you want to play someone who's really good with a sword and magic? Then maybe we can find a way to include the aspects of Lord of the Rings that you're actually wanting to play without having to set it in Middle Earth.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you got to fine tune your ship for your table. It's super important. And again, as a GM, that's kind of the chameleon role that we play all the time. Is we're constantly adapting and trying to make it suit, and trying to find the like I said earlier, the correct system for it, so that we play something that feels really thematic and stylized, with the rules and everything, not just the RP and everything we're doing, but have like a fucking cool ass system to go with it and things. I think all of that is a really, like, you as a GM, we're constantly having to like refine down and be like, how do I get to exactly that vision of what we were all hoping when we sat at the table.
Do you know the hold that thought, Tom, just because it's related to what Bodhi just said. Do you know the older meme now of the woman putting different cubes into the little children's toy box? Which one does the square peg go into?
Yes.
It goes into the square hole. Which one does the circle peg go in? It goes in the square hole. And she's getting more and more frustrated. Somebody sent me that recently, but it was overlaid with which system do you want to use? And it was like high fantasy genre, the square hole, and the square hole was D&D, and it was like cosmic horror, and the little cosmic horror peg was Call of Cthulhu, and they went the square hole and put it in D&D, and then it was like modern day gunslingers, and it had some other system on it, and they put it in D&D, and it was like, you got to know the system. Yes, D&D can tell all these stories, but why are you setting this this sci-fi in D&D when you've got amazing sci-fi systems out there?
Totally.
Anyway, Tom, I cut Tom off.
Yeah,
sorry.
go for it.
No, go ahead and finish your thought on that. And then...
I was gonna say, we're as Homie and the Dude, like, something that we are really about is like, we love using other systems. At this point, we play D&D as part of other actual plays that we own, but we will be playing D&D with each other for the first time in a very long time, which we're excited to launch on our channel soon. But we predominantly play other systems. Like, at the moment, we're running through like a Morkborg spin-off called Ronin. Where we love things like, Tales from the Loop, Orbital Blues, Call of Cthulhu. There's a bunch of other, like, it's just so expansive, and so that's why we write our books System-agnostic, actually, is because we realize that the settings that we have, we love writing the settings, but we want them to be able to be played using most systems. So if you can, like, if you have a system that you're like, man, our table only play Cypher, or our table only play Fate, then it's like, cool, awesome. Well, now you've got settings and stuff that you can play in the system that you love. Because we have friends that are like you said, the square hole D&Ders who are like, I will somehow make D&D work for everything.
Yeah, I know the system. Therefore,
that's awesome,
And it's not to say it's a wrong way to play per se. Some people just don't have the spare time. Like, I'm doing this for a living. I've got the time to read stuff. If I need to read it, I can write it off as doing work. But like, if you're working a huge job and evenings or whatever, and you're like, I don't have time to learn Morkborg or whatever.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
There's an age thing as well, like when like, which you guys don't know about, but you will. Which is like, dude, at some point, like, the processor just has, I don't know what it is, like,
got some dust up in that
some
bit.
dust. The wires are getting a little bit rusty up there, and like, just like the firing is. So, once you're comfortable with a system, you're just a little bit less able to switch as quickly and like offload all the other stuff from the other system and onload the new stuff, and then also connect up the similarities is just not as easy of a process as it used to be. That's so like if once I'm cool with the system. Yeah, do you experience that?
I'm already feeling that, like, because I got into D&D in 5th edition. It was my first introduction to it. I'd barely even heard of it before, that kind of thing. And I don't know if it's the ADHD hyperfocus or what, but like I learned the book. Like I could not quite to the point where I'd be able to tell you page numbers, but almost. Like I can tell you obscure rules of the Player's Handbook 5e off the top of my head. I know it like the back of my hand. But now that 5.5's come out, I'm already feeling the do I really want to have to learn the new stuff? And like, I've looked into stuff. I'm like, yeah, kind of that. I like the way that works. Or actually, they've made that rule official that everybody's been playing as official anyway. For the longest time, they finally made it official. And I'm like, yeah, maybe I'll grab aspects of it. But I'm already leaning towards I'll just make up my own system of like I've stolen this from this and I've stolen this from this and I'll just tell my stories in like the Robert Hartley GM system.
Yeah, dude, I love that, dude. One of the things that we have out in the future that we're going to be launching, probably not with this upcoming Kickstarter, but probably our next one, is we've been working passively in the background on a TTRPG system. Like one that we're hoping will...
Project Blackthorn.
Yeah, Project Blackthorn as we're calling it.
We can't talk about it, but we will a little bit. We'll kick around the edges of Project Blackthorn.
Exactly. And so, we're hoping to encapsulate all the stuff that we love from various systems and make a really good storytelling vehicle that is, super simple to play and really, really fun. Rules light while also being, complex enough to keep lots of options and, abilities and fun, and good shit like that. So we're trying to thread the needle with that at the moment. And it's really, really fun to, we're play testing it. I say we're running Morkborg. We're using Morkborg characters with with our system and mixing the two basically.
Yeah.
But it is hard to get to that.
So that kind of gets us back onto where I broke you off from before, Bodhi. You were walking me through your sort of process into D&D. You said you'd tried the starter set, Lost Mines Vandelver.
Yes.
You decided to make your own homebrew stuff. You were getting into talking about the Floating Cities world.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Yeah. So
also, just pause before you get into it. So one of my mods is not too far from Bristol, and says it's funny,
amazing.
It's funny how much you guys say dude because of the American background that you've both got. She says you really should be saying my lover. Somebody was like, no, they're father and son. I'm like, no, it's not a lover. It's you're right, my lover. It's just a Bristol thing. They're from.
Riley, all right, my lover. What's going on with you then, my lover? Golly gee.
It's really interesting that I was looking into you guys a lot more yesterday to be like, let me, learn who they are and stuff. And I was on your website, I was watching your videos and things. And Tom, I've got a major focus with accents and dialects and things. I'm really good at them myself, and I've also run like accent workshops and stuff, giving people advice at Gen Con and things to like how to make your characters a little bit more memorable, how to come up with a voice for them. And so I have a knack for being able to tell accents really well. And I was listening to your stuff and going like, Tom's got this sort of Genericon, which is understandable given you've gone all over America. And Bodhi, you have words of American, but you do have a lot of West Country in there. And I was like, it's really interesting that I can pick up on the fact that you were born there but raised several years here.
Very astute. That's very astute.
Yeah, dude, you nailed that, dude. Yeah, dude, it's hilarious to me. I love to play the game, dude. I have a little game that I play, and my partner now plays the game with me as well, which is when we meet new people, we start counting in our head of how long it's going to take them to ask what my accent is. And dude, I've had people last seconds all the way through to like hours.
End of the night?
Yeah, like literally, like we're like drunk, like on the way home. They're like, let me just ask. I gotta just ask. What's your fucking accent? And I'm like, oh, there we go. There it is. 6.5 hours. Nicely done.
I'll tell you that the AR sound like start and car, that's a real West Country. Yeah. And then whenever you say dude and man, like your not quite non-verbals, but your filler words, those are very American.
Yeah, that would make sense. That would make a lot of sense.
Anyway,
do you know what I would love
my lover. That would give a different impression.
Dude, I would love to. I will definitely ping you post this podcast to pick your mind about, because one of the things Tom and I talk about this a lot as I have this right. Okay, so layers of context quickly before I say this is I have this weird irrational thing where, like some like a shonen anime main character, I think that I can be the best at something for some obscure reason. And I'm like, I will be the best dungeon master ever one day. You know, that kind of weird shit goes on in my head, basically. And so constantly I'm trying to get feedback and learn, dude. And like, I'm behind on many things compared to some of the greats out there, and I'm trying to just make my way. And so I'm wanting to learn all the time and get feedback. And one of the things that Tom and I talk about a lot is one of my places that I would need to put more work into and just like really expand is my like voice acting and my voice work, and like whether it's accents or even just being able to manipulate my own voice in better ways. Like I've got X amount of range, but I want to be able to expand that further. So I will definitely ping you after this, and yeah,
I've done a lot of talking about it as a voice actor. I can say, there's
really
also some resources online for like free resources for working on accent work as well. That are really useful.
Dude, that would be amazing. I would love to pick your brain and grab some of those resources from you, because it's something that I would love to develop a little bit more. But yes, back to Homie and my lover. So we started basically playing in a world that I made called the Sky Realm, which is a land of floating islands. Think like James Cameron Avatar, like chunks of rock just like suspended up in the sky vibes. And it was like really fun. We had like it was super steampunky, really, really like interesting plot that we had, layers of really good characters. It was really great. But I came to a point then where I was like, cool, I want to run airship combat. I was like, I want airships to be able to fight each other in my world, but the rules that D&D have at that point in time were things like Descent into Avernus. There was like Star Wars 5e that had some stuff. There was another one called, I want to say like Dark Star.
Dark Matter.
Dark Matter, thank you so much. Dark Matter that had some stuff in it. And a couple of other like third-party supplements that I was able to like pull bits from, and like some early Spelljammers from like second edition and things like that. But it just wasn't, none of it like I had to find all these resources and then amalgamate them to make like something. So I was like, that's a ball ache and I just don't have the time. So Spelljammer was coming out. I was like, perfect, that's going to solve all my problems and I'm going to be able to play super sick vehicle combat and have a great time. And then Spelljammer came out, and as everyone knows, it was just an absolute fucking shit show of content, just a flopperino. And so I was like, damn it, I'm gonna need to make some rules, basically. So at that point, that's when we started writing our first book, Sky Zephyrs. So I literally made that book so I could run shit in my world, basically, and just give me the tool to be able to run airship stuff in 5e. And then from there, we did this Kickstarter thing where we basically did half of our marketing through like traditional things like BackerKit and Facebook ads and like YouTube and Google and things like that. But then at the end of it, we worked with some TTRPG creators, and we were like, wow, like that really worked with them. They felt really good about it because we try and offer people really good deals in terms of like percentage cuts and like how much they get and things like that, because we want to like really invest in the community that's helping us do what we do, basically. And so we basically were just like, wow, that was really great working with these creators. So going into our next project, which was one of the airships provided to you in the first book, is the Wandering Tavern. People loved it so much that we ended up making an STL for it so people could print the Wandering Tavern and things like that. So we ended up being like, you know what, people love it so much. It's a whole city. It's the size of the city. Let's make it into our next setting. We're like, cool, let's just make the Wandering Tavern setting, basically.
The thing that astounded me about the Wandering Tavern Kickstarter video was like where it's like, oh, you're worried about getting lost here? Don't worry, you've got maps, and it was just like layered it up, map of every layer of the Wandering Tavern, the entire floating city. I was like, holy shit, that's a lot of maps, and I could just immediately go, oh, this feels like an RPG video game now. Now I could just like flick between the maps and be like, oh, where do I want to go? Where do I need to go? I need to go over here. I need to go down these steps in order to get to this tailor over here. Yeah,
exactly. Like,
immersion.
Dude, I super appreciate you saying that. And like the maps thing, dude, was a big part of it. Like I came away, so going into that, me and my writing partner, Emily, shout out to Emily, the fucking G, absolute legend. Her and I came together for this like Studio Ghibli idea. We were like, we really want it to be this really wonderfully fantastical, but also like every Studio Ghibli movie had that kind of dark twist somewhere like underneath the like roots of it. So there's a lot of like mafia and like grungy stuff going on there. And with the maps, we were like, okay, so we knew what it looked like from the outside because we had the art from the first book, basically. And so what me and Emily did literally was we looked at the art and we were like, okay, so this little section here, that's the laundry. We're going to make that the laundry room. We don't know what's there in the laundry, but there's a laundry room here. And then this is where the helm is going to be because it's at the front and you can see most of everything. And that propeller there is going to be attached to the main engine, which means that if that's there, that sits under the helm nicely. And, you know, we literally just like built it up by looking at this piece of art and trying to decide what everything was going to be. And then from there, we got our map maker, Vic. Shout out to Vic. Absolutely incredible map maker. To basically, we were like, cool, dude. Here is what it is, and we like described it to him, and then we were like, you can't see any of the back section of this art, so we need you to like come up with what it's gonna look like, and come up with like what the back is gonna be, based off of some other like brief that we gave him. And he just went to town with it, ran with it, and down to the point where when we were talking to him, he's like, okay, so in this area, he was like, you wanted this to be like the poorer living quarters. This is where like the staff who can't afford or the patrons who can't afford, you know, the hotel or the good living quarters, this is where they come to. So it's like, so as you'll see, there's blood splatters here because someone got their ass beat the other night and got robbed. And like, he's like, and over here, and we're like, dude, this is crazy levels of detail. Like you really, and down to the maps then influenced a lot of the other stuff that happens. So for example, there's an area in the maps where there's loads of cobwebs in a set of the living quarters. Now in there, we were like, we loved the idea that there was cobwebs. So Emily came up with this hilarious idea that there's basically this feudal war going on between the termites living in the silver quarters and the spiders living in the silver quarters. And basically this whole thing of an elf that was living there had made a deal with a spider queen to release her army upon the lands, clear the termites so that the wood in the area wasn't being destroyed anymore. And then the spiders could live there and make it their like kingdom, basically. But to do this, and this is a plot hook in the book. There's a whole plot hook and like everything that you can follow going into this. To do this, you have to like shrink yourself down to spider size, and we call it Spider Game of Thrones, basically. And there's like a whole plot line following it.
I love that.
But yeah, so just like a tiny bit of thing, there was cobwebs in a tiny bit of the map, ended up being a whole plot hook. With then items, we included like the Alice in Wonderland, drink me and eat me, like cake and potion, you know, so people could shrink themselves and follow that if they wanted to. So like things like that, dude, were just,
I love where the
we felt
inspiration
super lucky,
comes from,
you know?
where it's like a little thing on a map that you're like, okay, I guess I have to come up with a reason as to why there's a teleportation circle on this map that I'm using for this cave, and I'll come up with a law for it. You think I'm just hand waving why it's on the map, and then the players are immediately involved in it. And you're like, oh, is this where the story lies? Oh, okay, cool. Let's jump into that.
Yeah.
I can't remember who said it now, but there was a famous interview with one of the big names in dungeon mastering, who was like, the entire thing came about I think it might have been Matt Colville. He says the entire thing came about from my players just like forcing themselves through a teleportation circle that I didn't really know was there, and I had no idea what was on the other side of it. And I was just like, I kind of mentioned it as part of scene setting, and then they went through it, and I was like, all right, literally the meme of like throwing out everything he'd planned and been like flying by the seat of my pants, completely improvised. Where did this portal lead to?
Dude, 100.
It's terrifying. I don't like to run games like that myself. But I mean, if you can,
dude, that's when the shit gets really wild. As a GM, that's one of the first. I feel like that's a really early lesson that GMs get. Is like you say some dumb shit of being like, oh yes, and there's a case with like some what looks like artifacts or something in it, and your players the whole plot goes out the fucking
Fixation.
window. Yeah, exactly.
Why is
You're
there?
like,
Why is there a
son of
chair? Why he mentioned a chair? He drew attention to that chair. It must be an important chair.
Yeah.
Spend
Is it a fucking mimic?
session on trying to get through a door that wasn't even locked in the first place because nobody stopped him from pushing.
Dude, exactly. And yeah, so I think that was a big part of enjoying that creative process, and we really like, you know, it was a nice time to make the Wandering Tavern, because again, Studio Ghibli is also such a beautiful space to explore. You know, we made spirits and things. We like added a bunch of like goofy mechanics and things like that to enhance it. We added a baking competition that you can run, you know, for your players and shit like that. You know, we just wanted.
I did that with a group of kids. So for a while I was a GM for special needs kids with autism and Asperger's.
Incredible.
And all that stuff. And one time I realized that I was kind of driving a particular genre of style, like a bit of a realistic verisimilitude, and they weren't having fun. And I was like, it's because I'm trying to force them into a style of gaming, and they want like slapstick, crazy, no consequences and stuff. So I was like, the very next session, one of them was going home to their hometown, and his whole backstory was that he was a baker. And so I was like, cool, there's a bakery competition, and in order to win the competition, they need to make the best bread, and in order to make the best bread, they need to get all of the best ingredients. So I looked up all the ingredients that go into making bread, and I was like, you need the purest water, so you need to go on a little side quest to the plane of water.
Perfect.
And then you needed the purest of the wheat, and so you need to go to the windmill that's run by 4 different elementals that are all constantly fighting, trying to prove each other the best. So if you can best each of the 4 elementals in their own game, prove to them that they should be humble, then they'll go back to work at the windmill, and then they grind the flour, so you get the best flour. And then you need an egg, and so you need a rock's egg, so you have to go climb the mountain and get an egg from the rock. And every little ingredient was like its own side quest, and suddenly they were super engaged because I stopped fighting them on the game they wanted to play.
Dude, that's perfect, dude. That's so perfect. And dude, just like goosebumps, like, dude, that's such lovely.
It was a lot of fun.
There's something about sometimes as well, dude. Like, I think we as GMs often forget. It's often like, dude, save the fucking world. Like, this is all about, like, you know, that's such a common thread in, like, you know, the world is ending in some way, so you gotta fucking save it. And I love some of my favorite campaigns. We played one in Orbital Blues, which is a like depressed space cowboy type TTRPG, where we ran a taco truck, and the whole thing was we ran a taco truck, and there was a scrap spaceship had crashed down, and there was going to be a race to try and get the scrap stuff. So it was us pimping out our taco truck to make it fast enough to race for this, like, to get the scraps. And that kind of thing, that like super mundane thing that for like these people means everything, is so real. And that's such real life stuff of, like, you know, we all fall in love, you know, whether it's like, oh man, I've got to have like the next like Magic the Gathering card, or oh man, I'm obsessed with cars. And those things matter so much to us as people that, like, you know, we fall in love with it. So like someone who loves soccer or football would go out of their way for a quest based on, like, oh, you've got to get Cristiano Ronaldo's like golden boot, and it's like, oh, to do, you know, it's crazy how a small quest like that, something that means something to those characters, can be just as empowering as the world ending. Do you know what I mean? I think that's a super beautiful thing too. So I commend you on like changing the path there and going that route, dude. It's fucking, and it sounds like each of those mini quests were freaking dope.
Everything was
so
so
that's
fun.
The way.
They had to go get milk from the dairy farm, and when they got there, the dairy farmer had been trying to, like, he'd been experimenting with different potions to try and make his cow give the best milk or something. But it resulted as in his entire dairy flock had been subjected to different potions. So there was one like a gigantic cow, and there was a teeny weeny one. There was one that was radiating sickness. There was one that was super fast with haste. There was one that was like made of metal now, and they didn't know which cow gave the best milk. So they had to like grapple one of them as an action, and then as a bonus action they could milk it. And then and then somebody else could take a bonus action to sample it. And if it was the right milk, they would know. But if it wasn't, they now were subjected to that particular potion themselves. So now one of the guys is hasted, and like they can't catch the hasted cow, so they're working together to get that. They were risking getting crushed by the giant cow who stampede. It was just like this craziness, and I was like, oh yeah, D&D doesn't have to be about saving the world in every session. You can do wacky, crazy stuff.
Really
Yeah,
creative.
Dude, that's
fun
fucking
stuff.
awesome. I love that, dude. Yeah, you went a great route there.
Question about Wandering Tavern. Why is it Wandering Tavern if it's like an entire city or a floating town?
Okay, so great question. Originally, there was a gentleman called Sal, or Salius. Salius is or as he's known amongst the Wandering Tavern, he's the creator, basically. And no one knows if the creator is still alive, or what he's doing, or where he is. But Sal, turns out, lives in the laundry room that I mentioned a little bit of time ago. And he lives down in the laundry room with his cat. And basically, he had a ship called the Wanderer. So his original airship was called the Wanderer, and it was like a little one-man thing. And it's actually included in the book. You can play the Wanderer if you wanted to play it. He then basically got captured by a group of pirates whose ship was called the Tavern's Calling. And so basically, after getting captured by these pirates, he had this magical chest that he kept with him that he used to basically just kill off the entire pirate crew. Like he just basically his original cat gets killed by the pirates, so he just goes on a murderous rampage and kills all the pirates. It's actually John Wick's and basically then amalgamates their ship with his ship, and that becomes the Wandering Tavern. Because his is the Wanderer and it's the Tavern's Calling, and so that becomes the Wandering Tavern, and then that's
there's a timeline in the book.
Yeah, exactly.
That shows that depiction of the artwork, which is just this little joining of two ships, and then as you go through the timeline, his motivation is to start building this out.
Yeah,
and so he goes on a kind of a quest to capture other ships and then to attach them, and the thing starts building. And so you see the historical growth of what was originally the Wandering Tavern. And basically it is essentially the material from the Wandering Tavern is the material that has been repurposed or just bolted on of other ships.
Yeah.
So there's hundreds of ships that create the...
Yeah, it's basically a huge... So after that, bunch more ships were like attacking him. So he just kept adding more ships to it and, accruing more, like anyone that basically his option was like if people attacked him, it was either you die or you join us and you become part of like our little like city kind of situation. And he just kept building out exactly like Tom said. And actually the dock is the original bow of the Wanderer. So the dock that still exists there where all the ships kind of come and shipments are dropped off, cargoes kind of let off, that's the original Wanderer bow still there basically. But yeah, dude, it's just a crazy amalgamation of shit basically.
Fair enough. And how did the Kickstarter come about? Like how did it suddenly become, because it exploded, right? You did so well in the Kickstarter. What was it, like 1,500% of the goal or something?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, dude. Dead
How did
on.
that happen?
Dude, the way it happened. So first of all, the Kickstarter happened because we have the like Avengers of teams, dude. Like we have, Emily, my co-writer, who is an absolute badass and one of the best in, around. We have Ben, who is our like operations fulfillment marketing like person, along with Tom, who's doing marketing. We have Chris Hopper, who is our layout guy, who's worked on like so many things that people like have encountered in the TTRPG space, things like Candela Obscura, and is working on other big projects and things like that. So he's all over the sphere. We have our incredible artist who his art is basically becoming synonymous with our name at this point, which is Alex, Art of Caustic. He is insane and is like the easiest person to work with in the world. He's such a legend. Absolutely love him. And so, dude, this team, and Tallulah, our editor as well, cannot forget Tallulah. We all came together, dude, and just pushed and pushed and pushed and worked our asses off to make this product that we absolutely love.
Was it like a voluntary thing for everybody? It was just everybody just pitching in their time, or was it like a team that you could reach out and have the resources to actually pay them from the beginning?
So in the UK during lockdown, there was something called the Kickstarter scheme, which is a thing where the government were paying to employ people for X amount of time, basically. Right. So we used that basically to get us through to the Wandering Tavern Kickstarter. Nice. And with that, dude, so then how did the Kickstarter happen, and how did we get to the point, dude? The community. Like, the community is what happened. We shifted our focus almost entirely at that point, and now have gone completely away from Facebook ads, YouTube ads, Google ads. We don't invest any of our money in corporations or any big companies or anything like that. We put all of our marketing and everything that we do into the community. So we basically split everything 50-50 with everyone. So if a content creator makes an ad for us and they bring people to us and their audience activates because of something that they've put effort into, and they come in, are interested in one of our products, we give that creator half of whatever they bring in, basically, so that they can, share in the effort that they put in helping us, in the same way that we put the effort in to make the product that person then ended up enjoying, and so the community just activated, dude. We talked to a bunch of people, like a couple of, big creators really stood behind us, and people like RuneSmith, shout out to him, absolute legend, who just backed us from the start and loved what we were doing and was just, supporting us, willing to promote, willing to help us out and things like that. And so, Will D&D Shorts, Zach the Bold, all these people who just like came out of the woodworks, Mike Super Geek, all these amazing people, Underground Oracle, like our friends in the space, like everyone
I saw your interview with Cinder Block Sally as well, a friend of mine.
Exactly. Yeah, Cinder as well. Cinder was fantastic during that time. And yeah, dude, everyone just activated. And we were super fortunate that the community loved the Studio Ghibli angle and the Wandering Tavern itself. They loved all the digital stuff that we were giving, the physical books and everything. And we were lucky that the community just saw something in us and gave us a chance. And that's why we're here, dude. That's honestly like what it comes down to. Is the reason we're coming into this next one is we're trying to make a change, dude. We're trying to change the TTRPG space. We want to call out to all the big companies out there that are doing what we do, publishing books, and saying, look, we are evidence that you can do this by investing in the community. We don't need to be putting the money that we're investing to market this shit or publish or whatever into big companies or big corporations that are not helping our TTRPG space. We're watching big creators, people with hundreds of thousands of subscribers, drop off the map because YouTube's algorithm is no longer able to support them financially and things like that. So what Tom and I are trying to do, like majorly with this next one, is bring it back to the community. So we have a bunch of creators who will be doing voiceovers in the books. We have creators who have written expansions for the book. We have, a creator army of people that are going to be hopefully promoting and doing all this stuff. And basically, essentially what it's going to come down to is whatever we make on the Kickstarter, half of it's going back to the community and is going back into all the people that people love, people like yourself, people like, like Will D&D Shorts, Cinder, Arlentric, Zach the Bold, Deck of DM Things, all these amazing people.
And also just like the layer of people that, so those are pretty influential and recognizable creators, but there is a whole large group of creators that are just trying to find their way as well. So we're kind of, the doors are open and we're inviting, whoever of those creators that want to come in and be part of, what we're defining as our creator army, to send a message, to create a groundswell. You've seen it sometimes, I'm not sure how aware you are, Rob, of like, like Ginny D and Pointy Hat, last year they did a Kraken Week, and I think this year they're going to be doing, I don't know, Dragon Week or something like that. And so you've seen the community come together at certain moments, and it's like obvious, it's noticeable. You're like, oh, something's going on here, because it's not just a couple. It's, everywhere my feed is showing, there's something about Kraken Week. I don't know if it can happen. I don't know if we can do it, but our hope is that we can send that kind of exposed message to the wider audience of like, hey, these are the reasons why these creators like it. Hopefully, and the next project called the Scorch Basin, it is similar to the Wandering Tavern. It's a setting that you can either play your whole campaign in that space, or you can drop that space into your existing campaign.
Existing world, I was
it's
thinking
basically
of
a
doing the
meteor.
same thing. Like I was looking at it yesterday, and I was like, "Oh, there are a lot of places in my world that's like big barren deserts, and I know it's dangerous to go there, but I've not really thought about why. I've never had to flesh it out because the game's ever gone there." I was like, "Oh, something like
Yeah.
Scorch Basin, I could just be like, they've done it for me."
Yeah, exactly. So, so that's kind of the model. But as far as like, creators and the project, hopefully they like Scorched Basin, generally, and they're happy to promote it out to their audience. First thing. Second is hopefully they like what's the intention behind us, Homie and the Dude, and wanting to reinvest everything back into our little ecosystem, right? So why do we have to share our whatever money is being circulated or created in our ecosystem, why do we have to give a portion of that to Mark Zuckerberg? I don't think we do. I think we can continually reinvest it within ourselves, and hopefully that pie continues to grow. So that's the second thing.
That's what they say about the TTRPG industry. It's like it's the same $20 just going around between hands. I'll pay you this for this. Oh yeah, I'll pay you this for this. Oh thanks man, I'll pay you this guy for this. Oh, everybody's new set of dice now. Yeah. It's like one step away from battering.
Bodhi mentioned, we're putting out there to our creators, look, you can, and we'll probably have a conversation with you about this as well. We're putting out there that you can actually collaborate on this project by voicing one of the NPCs. So you can say, I love the project, I love the intention behind the project, and by the way, I actually contributed to the project as well. So that's another way to reach, to send just a slightly different, more sexy message to your audience to say, hopefully your audience is like, oh, shit! So you actually like were a little.
If it's not just something I'm promoting because I like these guys, but it's like it's something I'm promoting because I'm actually in it. So like you can go and actually pay attention to it and listen out for when I'm, listen out for my voice, see if you can tell which it is.
Exactly. So it's new, and to be totally candid with you, we don't know if it's going to work because there's a reason why many publishers are putting their money with Facebook and Google because it works. It actually works.
And it
right?
converts.
It converts. So us stepping away from that is risky because there's an element of strategy that is proven. You're going to get a segment of those marketing dollars or whatever your currency is that you're investing through Facebook ads that are going to be showing up in Facebook feeds all over the world. That is going to convert to backers. And we're saying, okay, we're going to step away from that and see if there's a different way to do it. So we're kind of in uncharted territory right now, but we can sleep a little bit better, right? Yeah. We actually feel a little bit better about doing that. And so we're going to roll the dice, like literally, roll the dice with this one.
It's a good thing to like when you can recognize and acknowledge that you're in a privileged enough position to do that and be like, oh, we're not going to go bankrupt if this is an entire failure. If this is a flop, then it's not going to result in our deaths. Like we're okay. We're going to practice it. We're going to see if it's okay, and it's a way of us standing up for what we believe in and living by your morals. And I'm the same. Like I'm really lucky that I'm in a position a privileged enough position to say this is important to me, so I'm taking a stance. And yes, it's going to cost me money. I'm not going to make as much money as I would if I X, Y, Z. But I don't like like I haven't been on Facebook in the longest time or X. For similar reasons, like I don't agree with the platforms, so I don't use them. And would I have a greater audience if I did? Yes, but it's not worth it to me. I'm doing fine. I can live fine. I can pay my mortgage on my Dungeons and Dragons living, and so I can make that call to be like I'm not in a position where I have to negotiate on my principles. I can survive. I can survive with the decisions I'm making. And ideally, I wouldn't be on a platform that was ultimately run by Amazon right now for the same reasons. But Twitch is a huge chunk of my income, and that's not a place in my life where I am privileged enough to step away from it entirely. I do rely on Twitch. I do rely on YouTube. I do rely on Instagram. Because they are my living.
I think the other side of it is, I think we can acknowledge that there's an audience that we are losing. There's a segment of the commercial audience that we're probably not going to be able to engage with because they live in a different sphere, right? They live in that Facebook sphere, and and that. However, there's a part of our audience that I think will see what we're doing, hopefully, and this is I think for you as well with your Twitch audience, that will see it, recognize it, and actually super appreciate it. And that has a power, and it's, so I'm not sure how much we're missing out on, and maybe neither one of us are missing out on anything. Maybe at the very least, we're sleeping better because we're aligning our principles with something, with our actions. However, there might be a multiplier in here where we are walking the walk. We're actually doing something that is important to us, which you're not seeing as much these days. And some people hopefully will recognize that and say, you know what, fuck it. I really like what this stands for. Not only do I like it, not only am I going to invest in it, but I'm going to tell some other people about it. And that might be, a way to compensate for what we're missing. I don't know, because this is new for us.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, exactly. And dude, I think your stuff is fantastic I love that, and you said, you're not fortunate enough to step away from things like Twitch, for example. Dude, we're going to Gen Con this year because we need to be able to connect with a bunch of our people. We need to be able to, meet some of these creators and have conversations with them and be able to, organize stuff and get our heads in the space and do that kind of stuff. So again, we are fortunate enough to be able to go, but also just can't miss it at this point. In the same way that you can't just stream to YouTube or just whatever, and it's just how it is, dude. Like you said, we have to fight the battles where we can fight them, and exactly. I think we're trying to just chop away at the bits that we freaking can and stuff.
You shared your New Zealand story. You want to share your Gen Con Rob story?
Oh yeah, yeah, dude. Did you tell him? I'm not sure if you remember this. Do you remember us meeting at the Start Playing party?
I remember us meeting. Yeah, I don't drink, so I tend to remember things better than other folk at that party might.
So, dude, this is the thing where you are exceedingly perceptive of accents and things. I am exceedingly not perceptive of accents and stuff. I really struggle to I have my partner, her father is Scottish. I really struggle to understand him sometimes. There's times where I'm I just don't know what the fuck you're saying to me, Boyd.
That's Scottish for you.
Yeah, exactly. And so I just really struggle with accents, and hearing them and discerning between accents and things is not my forte. However, so when we were hanging out with each other, and I turned and someone else was, and I was like, oh yeah, these guys are from down under, and you were like, actually Kiwi, and I was like, oh, son of a bitch.
The lead up and the aftermath of that, the lead up are Bodie's like, holy shit.
Yeah,
I think that's Rob from Viva. And so, your childhood has been very
I've watched you guys for years and years and years.
So he goes up, he has the conversation. He comes back to me, and I'm ready to say, how the fuck was it? How was it? It's like, I fucked it. I
was son of a bitch, I said that they were Aussies by accident. I was like, I've never realized that they were actually Kiwi. I just couldn't discern the accent the whole time. I was like, fuck's sake, Bodie.
I'll give you this piece of advice. If you hear someone with a North American accent and you're in doubt, go with Canada. Because the Canadians are going to be more upset at being mistaken for the US than the other way around.
Yeah.
If you hear something from down under and you're not sure, go with New Zealand for the same reason. New Zealanders are constantly getting mistaken for Aussies. So for an Australian to be mistaken as a Kiwi, they were going to be like, oh, this doesn't happen often. Safe bet. Go with Canada and go with New Zealand.
Well, do you know what? I'm glad we can do this live on air. I am sorry. That has haunted me since that moment. That has lived.
I have not thought about it a second time.
I was thinking, this is the fucking way I'm ever having those guys on my podcast.
That guy, I'm talking to that. For fuck's sake. But yeah, no, dude, and also, dude, thank you for being, you were so awesome at Gen Con. You were super lovely, and it was amazing to meet you and just get the opportunity then. And also today, dude, I think for us, dude, this is the other crazy thing of when you get into this space, and I'm sure you experienced some of this with Will, D&D Shorts, and other people, is you start being oh man, I'm meeting the people who's on a weekly basis when they drop a video, I watch their stuff. You know, and that's a really beautiful, like, it's a really wholesome experience I often find, because often in the TTRPG space, you know, there's that saying of you don't want to meet your heroes, basically, or like don't meet your heroes. In the TTRPG space, dude, it's the greatest example of a community where I've felt the exact opposite of that, where every person who has been like someone who I love, who makes amazing content, has just been fucking down to earth, really kind, super lovely,
I'm
easy
trying to
to
think
talk
of
to.
anyone that I've met where I've been like, oh man, they're much more of a dick in real life than I would have thought. And I can't. There's people who are in the industry that I have heard second or third hand, like, oh, that person's actually a real dick. And I'm like, okay, cool. I haven't met them yet. It's not like it's meeting heroes and that's what's bursting the bubble for you.
Yeah.
Everyone I've actually physically met, talked to in person. Actually, I can think of one person, but I also give them the benefit of the doubt because they were busy and maybe they weren't shunning me, they were just busy, whatever. There's a couple of times where I've had an interaction with one person that I came away being like, but I'm still not thinking ill of them because I'm like, give them the benefit of the doubt. It was probably wrong circumstances to meet them under. I'll try again at some other convention. But aside from that, everybody I've met, I've been like, man, they're a really cool person. I thought Will was going to be one of those when I first met Will.
Yeah.
I thought, like, I had the impression, I don't know why, I just kind of had this feeling from his content, like he was going to be a bit up himself. He is one of the most lovely guys. He is genuinely one of the most lovely, generous, kind, thoughtful guys. And he's like so giving of his time, and he's so friendly, and just like, and it's like that with pretty much everyone. Zach Speaks Giant as well was another one where I was like, I'm not sure that I'm going to like that guy, and then he's one of my best friends. He's like so funny. Yeah, there's a lot of people in this industry that you're like, oh, they're really genuinely good people. Do meet heroes, because sometimes they're real nice people.
Yeah, I didn't know that you and Zach were super close, dude. That's so lovely. He's an awesome creator as well.
Friend. I did an actual play with him for a full year.
Amazing! Because I know him and Sid are super close as well. So like, I didn't know if the three of you like you bumped together or whatever.
Yeah, Zach and Cinder travelled together a little bit after Gen Con last year, and met up with my partner AJ and I as well, who were travelling together as well. So the four of us travelled together very briefly.
Oh, cool!
Hell yeah, dude! That's super sick. What a great little trip you had as well.
I can tell that I could easily talk to you guys for another like 3 hours because you're exceptional conversationalists. However, we are coming up to the 2-hour mark, and I want to not keep you because you don't have a hard out, but I don't want to be not overstaying my welcome. That's not quite the right phrase because you're in my place. I don't want to be keeping you. I'm going to be kidnapping you for longer than I should. So let's chat for let's talk about future stuff and like onwards into like blue sky future stuff, like way down the line where you'd like to be with Homie and the Dude.
Okay, that's a super interesting question. And afterwards, dude, I would also love to hear. I'd love to flip this back and hear your blue sky stuff as well. I want to hear what your kind of
I can tell you that real quick. It's pretty much a very quick answer because it's what I'm doing. Like I'm genuinely living my dream. Like I am in a position where I'm earning enough to pay my mortgage, pay my bills, have enough left over for traveling often because I love traveling. I'm doing what I love to do every day. I'm playing Dungeons and Dragons for a living. I want to be doing this until I'm bored of it, until I move on to something else. Maybe in 10 years I'll find myself going, I want to write a novel, and then I'll move away from Dungeons and Dragons and write a novel or something. But I want to just live the rest of my life doing the things that I enjoy doing and making enough to pay my bills from it. That's about it. It's about all I want out of life.
Fuck yeah! Anyone listening, that's a good way to look at life. Right there. It's a fucking good way to look at life. For us, I would say so. First of all, we have a Kickstarter coming out on September 2nd called The Scorched Basin. It is a Dune/Mad Max inspired TTRPG setting. It is completely system-agnostic and is what we call a drop and play campaign setting. So that means you can play the entire setting. The entire campaign could be in just our setting. Or if you have like a larger world that you maybe haven't fleshed out entirely, you can put it somewhere in your world. It's basically a meteor crash site that is turned into this like hellish desert landscape, basically, that has like those metal, like punky elements of Mad Max that we love, with like kind of crazy technology mixed with some of those nomadic, almost psychedelic, surreal, and sci-fi elements of Dune. also mixed into it as well.
What inspired this particular setting? Were you just watching Mad Max and went, I want to do that?
Dude, great question. So again, coming back to the community thing, we had 4 or 5 different ideas that me and Emily were like, we love every single one of these. Whichever one we do, we're happy with. And we put it to our community. We asked the people what they wanted. Nice. And the people said Mad Max and Dune. And we already had like a good idea for it. We already had like, a almost semi-outlined concept for it already, because it was actually the one that we were kind of favoring at that point anyway. And then we just ran with it. It was just, I love, again, super grungy, super dark stuff. We love, desert stuff, having to think about, weather, temperature, terrain, all that kind of stuff was just, it felt like new challenges, and we all constantly want to innovate here at Homie and the Dude. So it just felt like something that was like a step up, something that we had to like push our skills for, basically, was what the big inspiration for that was. But yeah, it's going to be chock full of, there's going to be 5 factions that are vying for resources and territory and things like that. There's a brand new magic system that can be used alongside with any system, whether that's during character creation or like as something that you give a character midway through the game. There's 3 new languages that we've invented, one of which includes ASL, American Sign Language. And we'll teach you what is called basic hand signing. So teaching you like basic spelling and things like that as you're kind of using the fantasy language as you go. Cool. Yeah, it's got like a whole packet, and also obviously all the standard stuff, like a bunch of items, bunch of creatures, mountain of NPCs, lots of cultural stuff. We're going to be including, like we did with the Wandering Tavern, recipes that are like based on the culture of where the recipe is like coming from. So if it's in the Skara village, you're going to be looking at making dishes that are very representative of what they would be able to cook with the resources they have. And those recipes are things that you can cook for your TTRPG table, so that when you're in the Skara village,
very cool,
they can experience some of that culture and get a bit of that. So yeah, dude, just cool. Loads of stuff in there.
Who's doing all the writing on this? You taking the brunt of it?
So it's me and my partner Emily, along with our co-writer Arlentric, or Arlo, Jordan from Australia. He's co-writing on it and is absolutely fantastic. As well as then the recipes are written by my mother, who is a like super professional chef cooking for the likes of presidents and religious leaders and crazy things like that. So she's incredible. And that's the 3 of us writing the main book, and then you have a handful of other creators writing expansions, almost like DLC for the setting, to give you more items, more creatures, and 2 adventures as well that you can play in the basin. Yeah, so that's something we're super, super excited about and looking forward to putting that out there to the world. And then, dude, blue sky for me. I'm super curious to hear what your thoughts are. But blue sky for me would be, 1, to get our system out there, and for it to be something that people see it for what we're intending to design it for, which is a system that can be used for any theme, basically. Something that can be, whether it's horror, fantasy, sci-fi, steampunk, whatever kind of genre you want to go down. We're trying to make the system so it can be absolutely anything. So it would be amazing to see people using that and playing games with that. And then for me, dude, when it really comes to it, I love filmmaking. I love telling a story. I love movie making. I love movies and all that kind of stuff. And I would love for the video content that Tom and I are coming out of hiatus from making very soon. I would love to see that being successful and people enjoying that content and us building a little community there. But the dream, the all-time, the like out in the future dream, dude, is to take one of the TTRPG somethings that we've run, a story that we really love, and turn it into an animated television show. Because to me, animes are just like, whether it's anime or, take any other genre of animated stuff, it's such a beautiful way of telling a story. We can do so much. You don't have to worry about sets and lights and cameras and, all this stuff. It can be whatever craziness you want it to be, and it can be exactly how you picture that stuff. So I would love to create maybe, I mean, we've talked about it for ages. We did an Avatar: The Last Airbender prequel series,
Yeah,
basically, playing the Avatar Legends system, and it's a story about people, some airbenders that were there during the massacre of all the airbenders that the Fire Nation basically did. So it's a super dark, like very, like Avatar: The Last Airbender is like a children's show. It's a very dark story. Very sad, but super moving. And I think it's just some of the best storytelling that we've done. And I would love to animate that. That would be like, to get a chance to tell that story in an animated thing would be incredible, because it was super powerful, super moving. And the team that we had doing it were just, everyone invested like crazy amounts. And yeah, it was just beautiful.
Yeah.
So yeah, would love to do something like that for me. What about you? What's your thoughts?
Yeah, so my perspective is both as part of this team, but also as a dad. So I'm really excited about us creating content for our YouTube channel. Again, we took a year hiatus because we were really, really trying to just get everything in order with our book creation stuff. And I feel like we have pieces in order now, that we have just a little bit of bandwidth that we can start dabbling back into content creation. So that's going to be really fun. We've talked about some areas that we're like genuinely, whether an audience comes or not, we're just genuinely excited and about playing stuff that's going to be fun for us. Whether it's in front of a camera or not, we would probably do it anyway. So that's going to be super fun.
That's the ideal position, isn't it? When you're making things that you would be doing anyway, and then people are willing to watch it and pay for it. You're like, oh, cool.
Exactly.
But I think, like, if I were to look at long term, I'm 60 in less than a year, and so I picture me at some point.
Old man witness over here.
You don't look a day over 59.
Cheers, Rob. Nice. Yeah, I picture me at some point being, the homie and the dude offices see me like park, or maybe being driven and parking my car, and me coming up to the door and them saying, "Oh shit, here comes the old guy again." And here he comes. But I'm seeing like
one of the security's like, "Here comes homie," and the other guy's, "I thought he was the dude."
Exactly.
And seeing like is something that we created out of our minds that has grasped, kind of roots of being something. It's an actual entity that has people that we have on our team that depend on their living through us, continuing our creation process. And I hope that continues to almost like solidify into a long-term venture that, Bodhi can continue on and enjoy as long as he wants to. He might at some point say, you know what, I've got an opportunity to do this or that or whatever. Perfectly fine. But as far as, me as a father, dude, I'm sitting in one of the more fortunate seats that any father could sit in, right? So I get to hang out with my 27-year-old son on a daily. Like, how many fathers get to do that? Like, literally, like.
From your end, super cool. From my end, so sad. So sad.
So I'm like, I love that journey. It's been awesome. We are continually appreciative of each other's relationship, but also learning from each other as well. We in many ways have gone to being peers in a lot of ways, but also still hold our father and son identity as well. And that's just been so fulfilling for me.
That's actually a perfect segue into one of the questions that I got from the audience, and just so I don't keep you guys forever, we'll get into asking the questions that the audience have been asking. Race, one of my mods, has asked, do you find that as dad and son you argue more or less working together? Have you found that it's helping your conflict resolution? You mentioned that you didn't have the best relationship when you were younger. Is this format paved the way for a closer relationship?
That's a great question. So the answer is, dude, no matter how much Tom and I want to bury the hatchet, dude, it still sits in the fucking ground in front of us, dude. Like, there's stuff where, when Tom and I were younger, we really just didn't understand each other. We couldn't see eye to eye in a lot of ways. And so we argued a lot when I was younger. And then for a period of time, we just became more distant with each other. And then when I came back from traveling, I'd grown up a bit. Tom started his meditation around a similar time. And simultaneously, we both shifted our entire lives and our mentality about each other and just like appreciating things and stuff like that.
You had some health issues.
I was gonna say around that time I got diagnosed with skin cancer, and so that like all of it just really like became a big thing that we like, you know, came together on. And so the answer is we don't argue anywhere near as much as we used to. We go like, you know, sometimes half a year without having a fucking a blow up with one another. You know, we spend every day with each other. We see each other's fucking mugs all the time, and sometimes on weekends, you know, like we see each other all the fucking time. And so for what we're doing, I'm super proud of us for the development that we've made and the time that we do. But, you know, that doesn't stop the fact that we have had to put, you know, even with our small team, a red card, yellow card system in with the team, which is if Tom and I are getting heated, the team can be like, red card, step out, boys. Like, get the fuck out of here. Go sort your shit, you know, kind of thing and stuff. Because, you know, there is still, you know, that there. And I know often when we do get heated, it's because I will slide back into feeling like a child and will feel like, you know, I'm the son, and Tom will step back into the parent role, and, you know, and we just adopt, you know, those trauma cycles that we've done, you know, 1,000 times in life. But I would say
no
we're getting better.
way I'd be able to work with anyone from my family. Not only because they don't have a clue what I do. None of them have any idea what this entire industry is about. They're just like, I think Rob tells stories for a living somehow. I don't know. He's earning money, I guess. But also because of the regression thing, the role regression. Like you go back home and instantly you're like, suddenly I'm a teenager living with my mom again, even though I'm nearly 36. Yeah.
Exactly, dude. Exactly. So it's been 1,000 times better.
Yeah.
It's been 1,000 times better.
Yeah.
It's been the best run we've had in our entire lives. This last 4 years that we've been working.
And it seems to be getting better and better. Like the understanding and the gaps of times where we are, you know, sort of at each other's throats. You with a knife, me with a gun.
Exactly. You gun pointed at my nuts, me knife at your throat. Just like yeah.
And Bodhi, your mum, Tracy, right? She is also involved with the whole thing. Like, did she come on board around the same time as it all started up, or was she like a later addition to be like, oh, I guess I'll help you guys out as well?
So this is the awesome thing. So Mum, T, Tracy, whatever, many names within the Homie and the Dude community. She has always kind of been there. She was working as a chef primarily beforehand, and then kind of stepped away from her chefing gig, and has just been enjoying retirement and looking after my grandmother, her mom, basically. But 3 times a week she comes and helps with Homie and the Dude. Now, that started off with her writing these recipes. So there's actually recipes in all 3 books?
I think so.
Yeah, it's all 3 books. We have like a bunch of recipes. So already, you know, in the first,
there's 30 in this one.
I was gonna say there's like 30 recipes in this new one. So these are like part cookbooks, you know. Wow. And so Tracy's like she was doing that, but alongside that, you know, she was coming in and like making food for the team. She was coming in and like supporting us, and like if we had like admin shit, she would come and do that. Now she comes in 3 days a week to come and help with marketing outreach. So she's like our community manager. She talks to loads of people on Discord and is like, you know, the mom of the Discord server as well as our mom. She like also then is writing the recipes for this next book, and we're looking at possibly doing some filming stuff with that. And then she also is doing things on Reddit. So we have like a big outreach thing that we do on Reddit, basically, and trying to like get our name out through the Reddit sphere as well. And so she does a lot of work on the Reddit stuff. She's designing our business cards for Gen Con at this moment in time.
Yesterday's conversation.
Yeah, so she's, you know, she does a bit of everything. She's pretty tech illiterate, so it's a weird process of like getting her to like do this, but she's great.
You get her up to a certain level, and then there's backslide back to
yeah.
How do I close this window? Oh man, dude, the X. Remember the fucking X.
But that's also because you just get used to a thing, and then Instagram's like, oh, we're gonna change things up and moving the button that you need to press to some other fucking page now.
Exactly. So no, she's just amazing. Like honestly, she's been the best support, and
she's the glue.
Dude, I was gonna say, like, the glue, and also without Tracy being who she is and supporting you, and without Nikki, my fiance, being who she is, we wouldn't be able to do this. Like, we're currently sat in my apartment right now, and my partner has not been able to come down into the living room this morning because we've been filming here, all morning. And so the Tom and I are really able to be who we are because of the women who are behind us supporting us. When it comes down to it, without Nikki and that,
they need a spin-off that's like Homette and the Dudette.
Yeah, exactly.
And they just it's just a podcast where they talk about their experiences being the great women behind the great men.
Yeah, exactly, dude. And that's exactly what they're the reason.
We'll try speed run these questions a little more because we've got 5 more questions from the audience. Fancy, my deputy, the one that is without whom I couldn't do what I do. She asks, do you have a favorite class or multi-class style, and do you have an epic player story with that class? Epic short player story.
Let's alternate so we can cut this down a little bit as far as time. So you take this question, I'll take the next one.
Okay, yeah, okay. So for me, it would be, so I played multiple. I would say my 2 combinations are, there's Fighter and Druid, and then Bard and Sorcerer. Bard and Sorcerer become redonkulously overpowered. So I play a College of Swords Bard and a Shadow Sorcerer at the moment, multi-class. Right. And with it, the spells are redonkulous. Mm-hmm. Like, then I'm also a melee fucking tank because I have these like different maneuvers that I can do.
Yeah, you can exactly. So you can be your own flank. Yeah,
exactly. I'm like I'm versatile in every way. But hilariously, I play that character as a total wimp, and he often runs away from combat. Fades at the back. I have this giant buster sword that I never actually use for combat. I just plant it in the ground and use it as cover because I'm a skeleton. So I go really thin, like using the buster sword vibes.
Very first D&D game I ever ran was for this guy. He's a good friend of mine, Joel, and he plays a guy called Lagan, who is somewhat inspired by Gurren Lagann, the anime. He wanted this massive sword. I gave him like a 2d8 claymore in like the second session, and was like, "Oh, balance, that's a thing." He's got massive buster sword too.
So my buster is very similar to. I took a lot of the mechanics that Brennan Lee Mulligan used for Murph's buster sword in the Unsleeping City, which is like, for Murph to use it, he's got to make like a strength saving throw because I've got no muscle, so I just I can't lift it. It's fucking useless to me. Other than it's like cover basically.
All right.
So that one. Yeah, definitely.
That's how I continue on. Go on, Tom. Otherwise, you'll be out of time. Tom, we'll ask you the next question. What? I think I just got rid of it. Oh, oops. Let me find out nothing here. Was it your love for TTRPG that bonded you more as a family, or did you have other things as well?
Great
Which question. I know that you guys also have a love for MMA and stuff. That's how you started, right? Interviewing people from martial arts and such. So were you already pretty tight-knit and D&D was just the latest thing, or was your combined love of TTRPGs the thing that brought you all together really close?
I think it's a combination of the two. I think so. I think we're doing a better job, and I think this is mostly attributed to Bodhi again, just finding opportunity to hang out with his parents. That most 20-something, I remember distinctly being a 20-something-year-old, and it was just an absolute obligation to hang out with my parents. And 2 or 3 weeks ago, we were just on a plane to Vegas, where my mom lives, spending a week in Vegas, and so there's an element of him just finding opportunities for us all to get together, whether it's our small family or our family along with his fiance's family. We've holidayed, all that stuff. So that was already happening. But I do think TTRPGs are a distinct tool to unlock some shit, right? And so, and that vehicle can be an access point to sharing emotions that you might not be able to do in your own human skin, right? Yeah. And so us being able to do that has accelerated our love of just kind of hanging out and getting to know each other and getting to understand each other. So I've tapped into some of my historical trauma in a character that Bodhi probably would be very be hard for him to relate to in normal ways, but in a character, he can kind of see how that character would operate or has operated in the past. So in that way, TTRPGs have been almost like a little bit of octane to our relationship.
Yeah, dude, fully agree. And like, I'll just add this, Rob. I don't have any siblings. It's been me, Tom, and Tracy since I was, a baby, and we've moved 3 different countries throughout my life and everything. And so it's always been us 3. Like, they've been my like siblings, my friends, my parents, all the way from when I've moved countries and lost friends to countries where I've gained them. And they've always been there and been that like rock for me. So dude, that's like, like that foundation has always been there. But TTRPGs and MMA, dude, skyrocketed that. 100%. It gives us excuses to sit around the table and hang out with each other.
I've barely been able to listen since you said 3 countries, because now I'm just trying to hear that 3rd country in you, and I can't pick it out yet.
It's Spain. We lived in Spain for 6-7 years.
Wow.
And so maybe if I was speaking Spanish.
If you were speaking Spanish, perhaps, yeah.
You hear the Brazilian come out in a Spanish
You're my lover. How do you say my lover in Spanish? ¿Cómo estás? Hello.
¿Cómo estás, my lover?
All right, Renarian asks, it's a math question by the looks of it. In your head out loud, which is an oxymoron, you can't do both, so I'll try and pass what this is meaning. Each take one of these. How you work it out really says a lot about a person which you pick. So 14 squared or 36 times 29.
I'm gonna go 36 times 29.
Dude,
Okay.
I'll tell you my answer, bro. I did my maths GCSE. I got my fucking A and
You got an A.
Deleted everything.
You
I got an A and then just deleted everything, dude. I honestly, I couldn't even tell you how to do it on paper at this point. I need a fucking calculator. My answer is, I don't know. That's my answer.
I mean, I could try to work through 36 times 29. I'm not sure I could get to the answer. Because there's, again, not as an excuse, but my personal experience with how my brain works is there's being able to map through those numbers just gets a little bit more challenging. So I could give it a shot, but I think I would probably get lost somewhere toward the end of just kind of carrying numbers over, the second digit that needs to be multiplied.
How would you go about it? Like in the cross multiplication kind of thing? But
I would go cross multiplication.
30 times 20, 30 times 9. I'd just go, for a start, I would pick 14 squared because I just know that that's 196. My parents used to drill me on times tables, and so times tables usually stop at 12, and they would go, okay, what's 13 times 13? 169.
Nice.
What's 14 times 14? 196. And we went up as far as like 16 or something. But 36 times 29, I'd go, for context, I have a
30 times 20.
I have a degree in applied mathematics, so numbers work well with me.
Incredible.
I'd go 36 times 30, and then I'd remove a 36, because it's one fewer 36 than 30 36s.
Nice.
36 times 30 is nice and easy. 36 times 30 is 108, and then minus 36 off of it, and so we're looking at 88, and then minus 6, 82. No, 72.
So 7,200.
No, because there's an extra
720. Sorry.
36 times 3 is 108. So 36 times 30 is 1,080. 1,080 minus 36 is.
I would go slightly different.
1,044.
I would have gone 30 times 20, which is, I'm thinking 600. Is that right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We there? And then 6 times 9 is, now that doesn't work though, does it?
Well, that's part of it. You just need to do the crosses as well. So you've done the tens times the tens and the units times the units. Then you need to do tens times units and units times tens. And
so I would get there.
You'd be able to do that.
Yeah, your system is definitely a little bit more, a little bit more systematic.
I would have to write that shit down. Like, I would have to get back to like old school, like stack them, draw a line, and fucking start like going like that, or like.
Can you thank
calculator.
Thank your audience for that really, really kind question.
Yeah. Made us look
super good.
They just know that I'm really good at maths, I guess, and they're interested in knowing how people do it. Because it is interesting to be like, if you ask somebody 7 plus 8, how do they do it? Because do they do 7 plus 7, then add on another? Do they just know that 7 plus 8 is 15 because they've done it so long? Do they do 8 plus 8 and then minus 1? Do they round? Do they take 3 from the 8 to make the 7 into a 10, and then what's left over is added on? There's all sorts of ways that we.
10 one.
And the thing about maths education, because I studied maths education specifically when I was doing my degree, it's really frustrating that we don't teach that any way of getting to the answer is fine. Like, if you get the right answer, it's perfectly fine. That's usually why they're saying, like, show you're working, and why they're always saying, like, how did you get to the answer? Because I don't care if you actually get the right answer or not. If you've made some silly calculation error where you've just off by 1 because you forgot to carry the 1, then whatever. It doesn't mean that you don't know the process. I want to know that you know the process, and I want to see what your process is. I'm not looking for a specific way of doing it. I'm looking for, does it logically carry? I'm like, yep, he's made logical steps. He got the right answer or he got the wrong answer. Much more important to me is just like knowing how you get to the answer is all that matters. Joe Baby asks, what inspired you to choose the Dune? I asked that one already. Nice, very good. And lastly, from Joe Baby, what's your favourite mechanic that you've homebrewed that you have never seen anyone else do anything similar? Good question, Joe Baby.
That is a great question. Homebrew mechanic that we've never seen anyone do anything similar. God. Maybe our dueling stuff.
Oh yeah.
Maybe our dueling stuff. Oh no, let's go with heroic synchronicity.
Yeah.
Let's go with heroic synchronicity. So this is a little teaser into some of Project Blackthorn that's coming up. So we realized that we love the idea of being able to do group roles. We found, like, in my games, I often like it that if a couple people want to do things, I like to make it that everyone is like rolling together or doing like an activity together, because it raises the stakes. For some obscure reason, people care a lot more if it's dependent on other people at the table. And so we came up with this mechanic basically where players can essentially go, okay, we want to work together on this thing. You all right?
I just forgot how to breathe. I've only been drinking water for 36 years, and I just forgot which pipe it is meant to go down. I can't ever understand anybody who is a believer of intelligent design, because there's nothing about this that's intelligent. If we were intelligently designed, we'd breathe like fucking dolphins. They use different holes in their body for breathing and eating, and they never choke to death. You were saying?
Yeah. So basically, it's an opportunity for players to be like, okay, we want to work together on something. So they're like, okay, GM, we want to work together. And early iterations involved me setting a timer and it being like, cool, you have 30 seconds to discuss what the plan is. Meta. So like above table, 30 seconds, go. The team would then be like, okay, I'm going to do this, you're going to do this, we're going to, okay, everyone got it? Cool. I'd stop it. I'd be like, cool. I choose one of them at random and I go, cool, you explain to me what the plan is and what are the different steps in the plan. Who's doing what action? So that everyone has to be listening and contributing. Then that person will be like, okay, so Tom's going to go over, he's going to pick up the arrow and throw it to Jim. Jim's going to wrap the arrow in cloth and then dip it in the oil. He's then going to chuck it to Jimmy, who's then going to light it on fire and knock it in Alan's bow, and Alan's going to shoot it at, whoever, basically. I'm like, fantastic, let's run it. So now it then basically becomes
everybody around the table is going, I'm biting my tongue because you missed a crucial step. That's not what we said.
Exactly. That's the match. That's the fucking match.
Yeah.
Exactly. So we had lots of good stuff like that. And then everyone basically, earlier iterations where everyone rolls individually, and depending on whether you succeed or fail, you give the next person a buff or a nerf to their roll. Nice, so you give them like a plus or a minus to their roll, basically. We've done new iterations, so it's a little bit different now because it was a little bit clunky. But the concept of then basically everyone coming down to that final person, and they've gotten like buffs and nerfs, so they've got pluses and minuses all the way throughout to their roll, and it's all dependent on their roll. They roll it, and we either all succeed or we all fail spectacularly. And it always ends up being epic moment, whether it's a huge failure and like has crazy consequences, or it's a huge success and we have an epic like moment. So that's one that we have really, really loved, and I've never seen any system that does like big group stuff in that way, basically.
Nice. Yeah, I like to roll group checks in a similar way, where it's like because some people are like, oh, make a group stealth check, and they're looking for like more successes than failures or whatever. Whereas it's similar but different. That I usually go group stealth check is like, oh, the DC is 102, and so between you have to get 102. Like I'll add up everything you're doing. Give me all of your rolls, because that way your 13 is still adding to it, and that's not bad. And if you do have anything that can be like, oh, I'll add on a D4, then you probably want to use it. Any little ones and twos, even if you roll 5, like at least it's 5 more than you would have got without you. So everybody feels like they've contributed to it, and that way also it's not just, oh, the rogue's at a plus 16, so if the DC's 20, the rogue's always going to succeed it. Like, well, because now there is actually a difference for the rogue, whether he's rolling a 36 or a 17 or whatever. Yeah, that's it's actually not bad. So I like those group things as well. I also like skill challenges for like exploration. Often I will use I'll say like, oh, it's going to take you 3 days to get to where you're going. Everybody help me to storytell in this moment. I'll pass it to them and be like, what is a challenge that you encompass on the way, and how do you overcome it? And then roll that up in a skill challenge and be like, sweet, you failed spectacularly, so it's going to take you 4 days instead of 3 days to get to where you're going or whatever.
I like that, dude. I like that a lot. Yeah, you gotta sneak some of those unique mechanics in to keep your games super fresh and super unique. Because
have those group moments. Those group moments are important. Yeah,
totally.
I'm getting a lot of praise at the moment. The latest episode of the Viva La Dirt Adventures of Azrim. I won't give away particular details for spoiler reasons, but there is a debate mechanic where they are trying to persuade somebody of something, and so I just used the combat rules and made it like a combat metaphor, where they are as a bonus action they can make one of their skill checks. So like animal handling might be because their bonus skill check is to do with how they're preparing their argument. So if they make an animal handling, they're preparing to tackle raw animalistic emotions that they know they're going to respond as a response to what they're about to say. If they make an insight check, they're trying to work out how the argument is going for me currently. If they make a stealth check, they're trying to hide a flaw that they know is coming up in their own argument, and they're going to try and cover over it and distract from it.
Nice.
Those sorts of things. So every one of the skill challenges got something like it, and then they make their attack roll, and they can use their attacks, they can use their weapons, they can use their spells and stuff. But each of the damage types is related to the approach to how you're actually targeting. So if you're doing bludgeoning damage, you're doing a blunt, rude, forceful approach to your argument. You're being maybe rude about it. If you're doing radiant damage, you're doing like a calm, compromising approach with your argument. And then they roll out all out mechanics as if it's a combat. Using their spell slots and stuff, and instead of hitting hit points, you're hitting resolve points, and you're trying to convince the guy by getting his argument down to 0. At which point he brings out his next argument. So it's kind of like a gauntlet approach. Like he brings out his next argument and his next one, and if you can defeat so many arguments by so many rounds, then you've convinced him otherwise, and he'll.
I love that.
He'll give up his position on it. And it was something that I came up with like the night before we filmed. I was like, holy shit, this is starting to flow for me now. I was up till like 3 in the morning like coming up with it. So you see me playtesting it at the table, and everybody's like raving about it. I'm really, really pleased that it went down well. It's like this combat metaphor. Acid is like burning away methodically at their argument, systematically burning it away from stuff. So yeah, I'm really pleased with that one. That's something that I've not seen anybody else do anything similar to that before.
Oh, dude, and for example, the Scorch Basin is jam-packed with that kind of stuff. We have, like, player options, like I mentioned, the magic system, which is, things that you can do in the magic system are unlike some of the stuff that you've seen in other magic stuff. There's, like, the speed state, which is a player option where players can, like, basically, the faster they drive in vehicles, it increases their it almost moves up almost like a rage, but very different in a lot of ways. But rage is the closest thing that I can relate it to. and just enters like in this fate. We have a social, like a social system for one of the factions where they have like a social number like embedded in their wrist, and that's like depends on how much money you make, what places you can visit, where you can go, and there's ways to increase that number, decrease that number, you know, that kind of shit. So,
social
dude,
ranking,
yeah, exactly.
Black Mirror
like,
almost. I think there was a Black Mirror thing where there was like a social media that everybody had like this global ranking. Got obsessed with trying to raise it.
Exactly, dude. So there's lots of that in the Scorch Basin. I love coming up with shit that is just a little bit left field. Is where I kind of go with that kind of stuff. And then also, because D&D still haven't fixed it, I guess you could say every vehicle mechanic I've ever made is something that's not been
mechanics.
done yet.
I looked at the new PHB 5.5. I was like, maybe they've given us something to play with underwater. Nope.
Cool.
Come up with my own rules for how to make underwater stuff fun and interesting then, I guess. Yeah, love headcanon, homebrewing and headcanoning stuff, and been like, cool, let's change this up, let's roll it this way. Most of what I play, I consider D&D, but I'm like, in actuality, I've Frankensteined the shit out of D&D to the point where it's like, is that D&D anymore?
Yeah.
Anyway, we are all out of time, unfortunately, as I could absolutely talk to you guys for hours more at this rate. So we'll give everybody another sign off where people can find you and such, and push them to call to action, what you'd like them to do.
Hell yeah. First thing I would like to say is, you know, Rob, I've been a huge fan of yours for a very long time. You have inspired me in the TTRPG space with your amazing GMing, your amazing like writing, and all the incredible stuff you do over at Viva. Anyone who's watching, if you're enjoying any of this, you're new, go subscribe to Rob. Go back what he does. Go join the Patreon. Go get involved with all the stuff they do. Support him. Allow him to keep doing this and keep living that dream that he mentioned earlier. That that blue sky thing. Where he's at. Just keep that going, because without him, none of us would have some of the awesome content that we get to enjoy. So please, like anyone who's listening, go and check Rob out, give him some love, support his stuff, all that kind of stuff.
And just remember that I'm a Kiwi, not an Australian.
Yeah, exactly. And thank you so much for. I'm never gonna live that down. Fuck. And thank you so much for just having us, dude. It's seriously been an honor to get a chance to talk to you and interact. On our end, though, we're Homie and the Dude, the father and son TTRPG creation team. You can find us all over the internet under that name. We have a Kickstarter coming up in September. Scorch Basin, go check it out. Otherwise, come check out our Discord server. It's a super inclusive, diverse, safe space where we have creators and hobbyists all alike coming in there, sharing ideas, talking about stuff. And generally, it's just a lovely place where people come and hang out. Often people talking about life stuff and how things are going. And it's just like a little family in there. We call it La Familia. So if you want to be part of something like that and part of the community, come and join that. Otherwise, keep your eyes peeled for what we're doing. And if you like anything that we're doing, check it out and give us some feedback. As I said, always trying to learn, always trying to get better. We'd love to hear your thoughts on anything we've done so far.
The links below me right now on the screen. If you're watching this, if you're listening to this on my podcast later, the links will be somewhere you can find. You can also just head to homieandthedude.com where it's linked from there as well. The link to the Kickstarter is also a tiny URL below me as well. Tom, anything to add?
No, I just want to thank you, Rob. We
welcome.
have been talking probably for several months. I think it was just coming out of Gen Con, and
I think it was about September
that
you first reached out.
Yeah, through your trip and everything, and it was just great that we were able to put this together. So appreciate you keeping your line of communication open and us to continue to kind of bring this over the line. So much appreciated.
I appreciate your patience in me finally getting around to setting it up and going through with it with everything else in my life. It's been a long time coming, but I'm glad that we finally got there. So I don't know about you guys, but I'm feeling short rested. I've got my hit dice back. I've got my hit points rolled.
What else was good?
In 5.5, you get a lot more back on a short rest now, so I feel like we're good to go. I start my ritual to my cleric god, and and I reach out to him towards the clouds, and you see Adam and God image. The cleric reaches down finger-wise to me, and then I grab him by his God finger and pull it, and then he goes, and let's rip this huge whirlwind, because I'm a trickster god, so why else? I go make a pilgrimage all the way up to the tallest mountain to pull my finger, and he destroys our enemies with a gigantic whirlwind from his godly fat. With that, thank you very much for joining us, everybody. I'll head over to another screen, and then we will head you off on a raid to somebody else on Twitch. Thanks for joining. I'll see you in the next one.
Thanks, guys.
Bye. Bye.
Hey, thanks for watching that. If you liked what we were talking about with that Kickstarter and you want to check it out, the link is in the description.